Welcome to the All Things Nintendo podcast. I'm Brian Shea, and this is a weekly podcast to discuss all the biggest news and games from the world of Nintendo. Now that the dust has settled just a little bit, this week's All Things Nintendo is going to be a bit of a catch-all for stuff that happened over the last couple of weeks outside of the Switch 2 launch itself. We're going to start with some news coming out of Summer Game Fest. Then we will talk a little bit about some of the demos and upcoming games that we've been playing recently. And then at the very end, we're going to talk a little bit more in-depth about Mario Kart World and then give a few other impressions about other Switch 2 games we've been checking out. Joining me for all of that is Game Informer's Wesley LeBlanc. Wes, how are you doing?
Hello. I'm doing good. Last time I was on this show, I did not have a child yet. It was in utero, I think is the word. But Sophia is real now. She is 10 weeks old, and it has been amazing. And now I'm a father. I'm a father in the games industry. All these sad dad games are for me now. Except I'm not sad. I love
that is
my
such
kids.
A wild thing.
Yeah.
So did you take any trips with Game Informer after we came back? I guess you did, right?
No, I haven't.
Wow, so I went
back,
on.
Gabby was in her
final
third
work trip.
Yes, yeah. We're coming up on our year anniversary for that, which is wild. That metaphor.
It is.
Was a year ago almost.
Yeah.
But no, she was in her third trimester whenever we came back, so I wasn't comfortable traveling at that point, just because theoretically Sophia could have popped out at any time.
Yeah, and so you definitely need to be around. But that's so wild that you didn't know it at the time, but that was going to be your final non-dad Game Informer trip. I mean, you're obviously going to go on trips in the future, but yeah, and we made the most of that thing.
We did. We were in the Pokemon Center, and I bought little Eevee socks. I didn't know the gender of my child at the time. I was kind of hoping for a girl just because we didn't have any girls in the family, and I wanted to be the first to do so. And I bought little Eevee socks to try to manifest it, and they were like pink with like Eevee's head on it, and it worked because I had a little girl, and now she can wear those socks, and it's adorable.
Oh, and I'm sure she's putting good use to them.
Of course, yeah.
So before we get into the games industry news that we've missed over the last week and a half or so with Summer Game Fest and all that stuff, I did want to talk a little bit about some Game Informer news that folks may have missed in the shuffle of Summer Game Fest and the Switch 2 launch. And that is that you can now once again subscribe to the print magazine version of Game Informer. It is starting back up, and our first issue will actually launch later this very month. We're bringing all the stuff that you loved about Game Informer back. We're also doing it on better paper, more pages, and it's going to ship in a poly bag. So your issue is going to be protected from the elements, which is a huge win for sure.
Yes. Yeah.
Plus, our final issue of every year is planned to have even more pages and a special cover art with the pages inside looking back at the year that just happened. And on top of that, some really cool news. We actually sat down ahead of relaunching Game Informer, and we discussed how we wanted to try and not only make the hobby of gaming a better thing for everybody who consumes Game Informer magazine, but we also want to try to make the world a better place with our subscription program. So we actually partnered with St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital, and we have a plan in place, a deal in place with them, that 5% of our net proceeds at Game Informer magazine, the subscription plans, will go to help fund research to find cures, preventions for children's illnesses. St. Jude's Children's Hospitals have been doing amazing work for decades now, and it's incredible to be officially partnered with them and being able to pass along a little bit of money their way as a part of our subscription program. That's something that we were really excited to be able to do. And, right now we are still doing our early bird pricing, which you can find at gameinformer.com/subscribe. We don't have a date for when that deal expires, but right now it is $48 for the entire year, down from what the normal price of $70 per year will be. And then our subscription also nets you a membership to gameinformer.com, which gets you access to our entire digital magazine archive, fewer ads on the website, and upcoming exclusive web content. Unfortunately, our print magazine is only available to folks within the United States right now, but we are kind of a startup, despite the magazine being around since 1991. We have a new parent company, so it's kind of like a startup mentality. So we looked into international shipping, and it just wasn't something that we could pull off at this point in our kind of young relaunched business's life. But what I can say is that after this initial window of launching the subscription program, my personal hope is that we will be able to explore other territories. But that will ultimately depend on like market realities and cost and demand. We do hear you, all the folks who are in places like Canada, the UK. We have heard you loud and clear that you want a way to get our magazine. We would love to find a way to do that. And as we've seen in recent weeks, market realities can change on a day-to-day basis. So we will definitely be monitoring that as we move forward. But for people who are international and want to be a part of this, or just people who want digital perks, even if they're not like looking for a print magazine, we do have a digital only subscription that is available to anyone. And I guess normally it is $45, and then for early bird pricing, it is down to $32 for the entire year. You can access all of those options at GameInformer.com/subscribe. Wes, without giving away too much, are you excited about any one piece in this new issue in particular?
Yes, I am. And without giving away too much, I'll say it is a freelance piece, which is really cool to have in the issue. It's a really good piece on a really cool game. And it's the kind of unique stuff that you can really only get. I mean, not only in Game Informer. This specific story, yeah, you're only going to get it in our Game Informer issue. But it kind of speaks to like what we're able to do by being a magazine. We aren't trying to be super timely all the time. We can run features on games that came out X years ago. And I think it's really cool that we are able to do that ourselves and also bring in writers that we're fans of from around the industry to do that for our magazine. Yeah, I feel like those kind of stories really speak to what we aim to do with Game Informer outside of the usual reviews, previews, the big cover story with all the exclusive info. That's the story I'm most excited for.
I think I know the one you're talking about. I read it today, and it is such an incredible read. I'm excited for people to read that one as well. A little bit of a tease for, I guess, the cover story. It is a game that it is coming to the Switch 2. That's all I can say, probably. So pertinent to this audience, and
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
cool.
So yeah, go to GameInformer.com/subscribe if you would like to join our subscription program. Again, our first issue is coming out later this month, and we will be announcing that in the coming weeks. And also, don't worry, because people have grown accustomed to me going on a whole like normal Patreon spiel, talking about like all the stuff that gets you. I'll save that for next week's episode, since I already kind of gave a sales pitch for Game Informer. But suffice to say, if you'd like to support me on Patreon, you get perks there as well, and it helps me continue being able to justify the time that it takes to make this show every single week. Wes, we have a ton of news to get to. As you are well aware, as many of the people listening to this podcast are well aware, Summer Game Fest happened this past week. Neither you nor I were there, which meant we actually had a chance to pay attention to the news that was hitting for a change. Normally when we're on the ground, it's like we hear about stuff 2 days later and we're like, wait, they announced that? I was in an appointment, so I did not see that happen. But there's way too much to cover in a single episode. There are a ton of really cool looking indie games that were either announced at the show or just shown at the show. So you can head to GameInformer.com for more on those. Wes, you were somebody who wrote up the majority of those big announcements for either indie games or AAA titles. So for the sake of keeping this episode under the 4-hour mark, we're just going to focus on the biggest news and the news most pertinent to this listening audience. But how about we kick some news off here with Switch 2's early sales numbers. It turns out the Nintendo Switch 2 is the fastest selling video game console ever. 3.5 million units sold worldwide in its first 4 days. And I looked it up, and in contrast, the first Switch only sold 2.74 million units in its first entire month.
Wow.
So, I mean, there's a ton of factors that can influence that. The two that stick out to me are, the weak lead in of the Wii U. So, probably like the Nintendo brand was as cold as it could have been at that point in time. But there was
Yeah.
also the lack of availability of the Switch 1 at launch. And I think more people wanted it, but they just couldn't find it. Whereas, like, I mean, have you seen Switch 2 store or Switch 2s on store shelves? Because I went to Target yesterday and I could find the Switch 2 camera, but the case that was like meant to house the Switch 2s themselves was completely wiped out.
Yeah, that's how it's been for me too. But I will say, like, I went to Best Buy at a midnight launch, and there was a line for people that did not have pre-orders, and it was like 100 people, and I was like,
Wow.
sorry, there's no way all of you guys are getting Switches. And then we were kind of just walking around because I had a pre-order, so I was feeling good that night. And Best Buy was giving tickets to everybody in line, and if you got a ticket, there was a Switch 2 for you. And I'm pretty sure everyone that was there that night, so well over 150 people, got a Switch 2, which I was very surprised by. So I think
Wow.
it might be harder to get now, but I feel like those first couple days it was easier than many of us anticipated.
Mm. So the Switch 1 is sitting around 150 million units sold, which is wild. Third highest selling console of all time, behind only the PS2 and the DS. With the acknowledgement that we are still way too early to predict anything of substance here, Wes, do you think the Switch 2 has any kind of chance to come close to that?
Uh, I think it does have the chance, but it's going to depend on the transition from Switch 1 to Switch 2 and how fast that happens. Similar to, like, I feel like the PS5, great selling console, a lot of people have not upgraded to the PS5 because there's not really a real reason to do so. There's a couple games you're going to miss out on, but like this generation has taken forever to fully transition. And I think if Nintendo is going to spend the next 5 years still trying to get games on the first Switch, then a lot of people aren't going to transition over, especially like the more uh, like normie, for lack of a better term. Like, of course, people that are like really into video games every day probably going to upgrade to Switch 2, but the Switch surpassed that audience and brought in a lot of people that hadn't gamed in a while. Those are going to be the people that are hard to sell on a Switch 2 if you're not giving them a legitimate reason. Like if the next Animal Crossing is also available on Switch 1, which I don't think it will be, I don't think you're gonna get those Switch 2 sales. Still though, fastest selling console, it's got a really good head start. But I think long term it'll depend on Nintendo's commitment to supporting the Switch 1 or not.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the inverse of the Switch coming off of the Wii U. Is that
Hmm.
for the vast majority of gamers, it had been what, like 6 years since they had bought a Nintendo console at least. So it was like, okay, yeah, we're due to buy a new Nintendo console, and it ended up being the Switch, which was a fantastic system. The Switch 2, I feel like, there's probably a good bit of the population that's like, oh, I just bought a Switch 1 in, 2020 when we were all locked down. Like I got a Switch 1 then. It's only been 5 years since that. So like I'm not quite ready to upgrade. But eventually I think, the thing that the Switch 2 has over the Switch 1 in terms of like its launch lineup, Breath of the Wild, my opinion on that. I think it's one of the greatest games ever made. It's my favorite game of all time. It doesn't have the mainstream appeal of a Mario Kart game because almost no
Yeah.
franchise has the mainstream appeal of a Mario Kart game. So Switch 2 does have the leg up there with not only bringing the first all new Mario Kart game in over a decade, but also, having it be exclusive to Switch 2. That is a huge boost to the Switch 2 sales
Yeah.
potentially. And it seems like it's panning out that way.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting because I feel like the more hardcore of a gamer you are, the less enticing Mario Kart is. Maybe I love Mario Kart a lot, but it's not like the like be all end all game for me. But I do think you're right that Mario Kart is going to bring a lot of people in who maybe aren't going to pick up a console because of a new Zelda game. Whereas for me, like a new Zelda game would be infinitely more exciting than Mario Kart. I love Mario Kart, but I kind of know what it is. Although
Mm.
obviously, World is doing a lot of shakeups to that formula. But yeah, I mean, unsurprisingly, Nintendo very smart launching with the Mario Kart. Smart move.
Yeah. So yeah, and then we have Donkey Kong a month from now, and we have
How do you think Donkey Kong's going to do?
I don't think it's going to sell like Mario numbers, but I think it's going to be like, a lot of people are going to look at that and be like, okay, well, I've played the crap out of Mario Kart this first month. I'm ready for something else for my Switch too. And if they've already
Yeah.
like, looked at the third party offerings and thought like, all right, well, maybe I'll play Cyberpunk, or maybe I'll check out like Split Fiction or something like that. And they're looking for like their next Nintendo game. I think that Donkey Kong is going to immediately pop up. Like you always think about it, like when games come out very early in any console's life cycle, people are looking for any reason, any excuse to buy a new game for their new toy, right? Like I remember when the Xbox One came out, I bought like so many like crappy indie games that like were just
Yeah.
not good, but I played them anyway because I really wanted to play my new system. And I think that a lot of the games that launched on the Switch 2 at on June 5th are benefiting from that. And I also think that the early exclusives are really going to benefit from that as well.
Yeah, 100%. I'm the same way. Like, I want to play the new console. Just give me stuff to check out. It doesn't even have to be great. Just the idea of playing something on the Switch 2 is exciting. Although there's a lot of good games out there, mostly because a lot of them are re-releases that we already know are great. But yeah, that's interesting. I'm very excited to see how Donkey Kong does, because I like Donkey Kong, but I have never played one of the 3D like 3D Donkey Kong games. So I'm cautiously waiting to see what people think of it. And I'm curious who's developing it, because if the rumors line up that it is the Super Mario Odyssey team, then I'm going to be questioning that decision a little bit.
I mean, I brought this up last week, but I have a pretty good idea that it is the Mario Odyssey team.
That's that great. That gives me more excitement for the Donkey Kong game, and like it'll be a better game than I'm anticipating, probably because of that. But wow, that would mean no Mario Odyssey 2 anytime soon, probably. I still think they might be making one that comes out years from now, but definitely an interesting move. But if anything, it just speaks to the confidence they probably have in this new Donkey Kong game.
But at the same time, it's also been, 8 years since Mario Odyssey came out. I mean, they may have been working on these games in parallel.
That's true. Yeah. One can hope. I mean, 8 years is a long time to be working on one game in general. So
Especially a
you
3D
could be right.
platformer. Like, you
Yeah.
understand it if it's like a big
GTA
like
6.
open world Zelda game, or yeah, GTA
Yeah.
6.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Um,
So we are, speeding down the path towards Donkey Kong Bonanza, which I think might also give us a little bit of a boost in sales. Not quite the boost that like a 3D Mario game would come with, but yeah, I think that we're looking down a pretty solid first year for Switch 2.
do you think that it hits Switch One numbers?
It's going to be tough because I think I talked about this on the Switch 1 retrospective episode that I did a few weeks ago, where it was kind of the benefactor of multiple perfect storms. Like I said, it was coming
Yeah.
off of like the Wii U, where a lot of people had not bought a Nintendo console in quite some time. We got kind of like the ultimate version of multiple franchises. It had a gimmick that was new and novel, but it wasn't intrusive like, motion controls or touchscreens were. And on top of that, there was the game that is most closely associated with mainstream gaming during the biggest news story of this decade, the coronavirus COVID-19 lockdowns. It just so happened that they had a game that was perfect for that exact scenario get delayed right to like the week that all that stuff went down. So it really did benefit from like perfect situations on multiple occasions. And now that like a lot of people have that Switch 1, it's like, okay, I already have a gaming console that if you're not like the most hardcore gamer, you could be like, all right, well, yeah, my kids all have a Switch 1. I don't think they need a Switch 2. Like if you have like a 6-year-old and you gave them a Switch 1, and you have a 6, a 7, and a 9-year-old, and they all have Switch 1s, and you have one for yourself, that's 4 Switch 1s in your family. And are you really going to buy Switch 2s for every single member of that family? Or are you going to be like, okay, well, I'm going to buy myself a Switch 2 that my kids can play. And if they want to play Minecraft or Fortnite, they can do that on their Switch 1s that they already have, and they can play wherever they want in the house. I think that maybe if there's like, a Switch 2 Lite, which I think was very popular with kids and like
Yeah.
families, I think that would give us a huge boost. But we're going to have to wait, I think, at least until this first year to really get a sense of the trajectory. But I do think that once we get over this addition, this early wave, we're going to start seeing it slow down a little bit as people are like, my Switch 1's still doing just fine. I still have like 20 games I need to play on that before I need to upgrade to the Switch 2.
Yeah. Not to mention the reality that like this economy is probably not as secure feeling for consumers
Mm-hmm.
compared to when the Switch 1 launched. I'm a little older now, so money means more to me now. I don't remember exactly what the economy was like in 2017 because I was like 22 and felt like I was rich. But like spending $450 on a console is it's a lot, and especially it's a lot in general, but especially in this times where, like you mentioned at the top of the show, the economy is kind of just changing on a whim, and I think that's going to play a big factor moving forward.
Absolutely. I'm excited though that the Switch 2 is doing so well,
Mm-hmm.
and it's indicative of the excitement that's surrounding the Switch brand in general. Like there's a reason that people are kind of all back, like all in with Nintendo, because they're coming off of their strongest generation ever. Uh, Pretty inarguably, I would say. Like it's one of their best selling consoles ever. Probably the most critically acclaimed games that they've put out in quite some time. And it's just, even outside of gaming itself, like, we have the Mario movie, we have Super Nintendo World, we have all kinds of success stories for Nintendo over this past 8 years, that I think it's pretty easy to call it their most successful era, which is wild when you think of like how how successful Nintendo has been and how integral it has been to video games over the last 40 plus years.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right on the money with that.
But we spin it forward, Wes. We have a lot of new games to talk about. In addition to the Switch 2 sales numbers, we also got the announcement of an all-new Nintendo game from one of its most popular franchises, the Nintendo Today app. Let's talk about that for a second. Largely underwhelming. It's like,
Yeah,
hey, like we go. Do you remember what the first big news story out of that was?
I do, and it's already not true anymore. But that's the live
Exactly.
action Zelda release date.
Yes. So as somebody who has done a weekly Nintendo show, let alone doing a daily Nintendo news drop, the way that like the people behind Nintendo Today are charged with, I can empathize with the people who are in charge of that content, because, there are some weeks where I'm like, what the heck am I going to talk about on this show? Thankfully, this is not one of those weeks. Um, but yeah, there's when you get down to like, sometimes you log on there and it's like, here's a 3D render of an HDMI cable, as if we'd never
I
seen
was
that
I was going
before.
to mention the exact same story as that as you. That was like the
You
worst,
know,
dumbest day.
yeah, that they're in dire straits when they're like, oh, we got to come up with something. What can we do? Oh, here's the HDMI cable that you will get with your Switch 2. That's when
Yeah.
it's like, okay, they are struggling here. We got a new game announcement this week through the Nintendo Today app, and Splatoon Raiders is the name of it, and it is a spin-off of the mainline Splatoon franchise. It takes place in the Spiralite Island, and you play as a mechanic, and we don't know too much about it, but it seems like maybe it's exploration based. Wes, you wrote this up for Game Informer. What did you glean from this initial reveal trailer?
Yeah, it's tough to say what it is because it's mostly just a cinematic trailer. There's like a little snippet of gameplay where it looks like you're playing by yourself and a big robot is following you. Based on the name Raiders and the premise, I'm going to guess this is building off of the roguelike mode they released for Splatoon 3 that I can't remember the name of. Um, I think it's like a more fleshed out version of that, maybe with some survival elements, because there seems to be a base. And anytime I see a
Mm-hmm.
base or like a home base, I'm thinking of, okay, we're going to be returning to that a lot. So this is either going the roguelite route where we go out, we explore, I see how good I do, and I bring back my experience and things that I get to keep through runs to this base, or this is my home base. I'm going out, I'm getting resources, I'm going to come back and build it up bigger. So I think it's going to be one of those genres. If I had to guess, I'd probably go survival because roguelite doesn't. They've already done it, and I don't know. A brand new Splatoon game needs to hit a wide audience, and I feel like survival is all the rage right now. And I think a Splatoon survival game would actually be really fun. Uh, that said, would have loved a little more info about this at all. It also sounds like it could be a ways away. They said like this is just a little tease, like we don't have much info in our little lab research report. Stay tuned. It's not unlike Nintendo to just show a game and not reveal much about it, but I do feel like this one's probably a good ways away. Not to mention it's coupled with the fact that Switch 2 upgrades are coming to Splatoon 3 alongside version 10, which has a bunch of new content. I think the plan is we're going to keep Splatoon 3 juiced up for a while we're cooking up Raiders, and then that'll be our next big push for this franchise.
Yeah, and we, like you said, we don't know much about this game. It does. I mean, I'm all for them exploring more gameplay styles within Splatoon because, as people who listen to this show know, I will always go to bat for the single player campaigns in the Splatoon games. They feel like scrapped ideas from the Mario franchise in the
Yeah.
best possible way. Like it's like, okay, well, this isn't working for the Mario gameplay, but what if we made it so you can swim through ink and shoot enemies with your gun? And it's like, okay, yeah, let's just transpose this idea over to Splatoon. That's how it often feels in those single player campaigns on the Splatoon franchise. So I'm all for more of that. One thing we do know is that when it does come out, it will be exclusive to Switch 2. And then, as you indicated, they also announced that Splatoon 3 is getting that Switch 2 upgrade. It improves resolution and textures. It's also adding 30 weapons from previous games, a map from Splatoon 1, and a new stat that will measure how good you are with each weapon. And then it will use that in matchmaking to make matchmaking better. So, yeah, lots of
It's
cool stuff in the world of Splatoon.
Before we leave this story, I do just want to pick a bone with somebody at Nintendo if you're listening. This is so you don't update the Nintendo Today app with any news stories for a while. It's been like I think multiple weeks that there was nothing on the app. So I'm like, okay, what's going on there? And then one day, after the launch of the Switch 2, the first game you announce coming exclusively to Switch 2, the first new reveal from Nintendo, you're going to do on the Nintendo Today app where I can't screenshot, I can't record the video, and then I have to wait 10 minutes for it to hit YouTube while scrambling to write up the story because, oh my God, Nintendo just announced the first Switch 2 game post-launch. I hope it's not a precedent moving forward. I despise this method of releasing news. I understand why it exists, and I understand why the industry continues to be more siloed. Still very annoying as a news writer who likes to cover all types of news, not just one company's news on an app.
Yeah, and it's like, what benefit do you get? I know that everybody wants to have their own app, and everybody wants to have this, but like, what benefit do you get from not just putting it on your YouTube channel? I don't know.
Yeah.
I do not know.
Why wasn't this could have been in the April Switch 2 direct, right? That was like 2 months ago. I can't imagine they didn't know this was happening, but they didn't for some reason. So it was on the Today app.
Well, it's the same reason that they didn't put out like a tweet or whatever about the original Zelda movie release date. They just put it out as like a Nintendo Today thing because they want people to get into the habit of checking that app. And originally that's transitioning straight into our next news story. Originally, that Zelda live action thing was announced in the Nintendo Today app. It was originally announced the release date was March 27th, 2027. But Shigeru Miyamoto did not go to the Nintendo Today app. He went to Nintendo social media accounts with one of his classic "This is Miyamoto" posts, which you know something's about to go down when a tweet from Nintendo's social media account starts with "This is Miyamoto." And the thing that went down this time is the movie has been pushed a few months or a couple of months to May 7th, 2027, with Miyamoto citing, quote, production reasons. So that can mean literally anything.
Yeah.
We already saw the Mario movie do well, but do you have any worries about a live action Zelda movie? Like, is this small delay anything to be concerned about?
I don't know if the delay is anything to be concerned about. Two things that do concern me. One, just generally, I think a live action Zelda movie is going to be 10 times harder to pull off than a Mario movie. One, because the protagonist is silent, and that's doesn't necessarily play well in movies meant for all audiences. And it's just some of the most iconic characters of all time. And the stories are less about the actual plot happening and more about like your adventure through that plot. So it'll be interesting to see how they turn that into a 90-minute to a 2 hour experience. But I have confidence. The Super Mario movie was great. The bigger concern I have is this line. This puts it right up there with, I believe, one of the Avengers movies coming or something like that.
Actually, it
Uh,
got delayed to December. The Avengers movies all got delayed to December's of
oh,
their
perfect.
years.
Okay. Well, then maybe they just went to that and said May's a better month for movies. I don't know. I think it's like a total of 6 weeks. So I imagine this delay could just be something as simple as scheduling. Maybe an actor or actress they had cast for the movie had a scheduling issue come up, and they were like, if we push it by a couple weeks, we can make this actor that we really want happen. I don't know. I don't think 6 weeks is anything to be concerned. Now, if we're talking like a year or even 6 months or something, maybe something's going on. But at this point, they're probably still just writing. Like, I can't imagine the
Mhm.
production's troubled yet.
Also, I was with you on the like, oh, silent protagonist is going to be weird in a movie. Have you seen Mad Max Fury Road?
I have seen Mad Max Fury Road. Yes. The thing
Largely
about that,
silent.
yes, but that movie is a feast for your other senses. Um, and I don't know if the Legend of Zelda World has that much octane to do what Mad Max Fury Road did. That movie is nonstop, and I don't think a Zelda movie will be nonstop because it has to have smaller moments. Um, but they could also just buck the trend and finally give Link a voice. I don't know. Like, it wouldn't be the
Yeah, I
worst
mean,
thing.
it's not like Mario was speaking full sentences before the Mario movie.
Yeah. Not to mention, they just cast Chris Pratt and gave him Chris Pratt's voice, basically, with a little bit of a Brooklyn accent. Nothing like the actual Mario that we all know and love, Charles Martinet, or even the guy that did Wonder. And it worked out fine. I think people totally accepted it. So I think audiences are willing to accept change. If they make big changes with the Zelda movie, all they have to do is do it well. That's all you have to do
Mhm.
when you make changes. Just do it well, and people will like it. So
Yeah,
I'm
and it
excited.
is very funny as I think back to Chris Pratt putting out the video after they announced that he was the voice of Mario in the movie, and he was just like, "Hey, it's a me, Mario," and he's like, "That's not the voice though." And then we watched the movie, and it was actually the voice. It
Yeah,
was just like, "Oh no,
yeah.
it was
That was.
exactly the voice."
It's just this is just Chris Pratt.
Yeah, and as always, we will be covering the Zelda movie in the lead up to the release of the movie. So keep on listening, and we will talk about all the latest news as we inevitably get casting, we inevitably get synopses, and then we have 2 years to talk about this movie. So we'll have plenty of news hitting in the next what is it, 24 months? Jeez. So, Wes, we just got the Switch 2 last week, and now we already have a new handheld device to look forward to. Xbox officially entered the handheld gaming market with what it is calling the Xbox Ally. It is co created with Asus, who did the ROG Ally or ROG Ally. I've heard it pronounced both ways. And honestly, it makes sense because Phil
Yeah,
Spencer has always been super positive on the ROG Ally. Um, Even when I interviewed him, God, it's been several years, but like I was just asking about like, oh, have you been like keeping an eye on like what the Switch is doing? Would Xbox ever go down that route? And he was like, I've been playing a lot of my ROG Ally, and I'm really impressed by what they do. And like, I just assumed that meant that like they would have a good relationship. I didn't know that would actually mean they were going to work together on what they are calling the Xbox Ally. But this thing is going to let you play your Xbox library, your BattleNet library, your GOG library, and even your Steam library on the go. There are two models. There's the Xbox Ally and the Xbox Ally X, and then the X is just similar like the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S. The Xbox Ally X will have a better graphics chip, more RAM, and nearly double the hard drive storage space. Wes, so I know you have a Switch 2. Do you have a Steam Deck?
I do have a Steam Deck. I am still rocking my launch day Steam Deck.
Okay, so do you think you would be in the market for an Xbox Ally?
I would for two reasons. I think the premise is really awesome. I like the idea of connecting all of my PC and Xbox games and stuff together in one place. And two, I'm just a sucker for new technology. I like being an early adopter. I like trying out new things. So I'm excited for that. And I'm gonna try. I mean, it's coming this year actually. So like I'm at the point where upgrading my Steam Deck now makes sense. And they haven't really
Mm-hmm.
released a new Steam Deck. So if I'm gonna upgrade, why not try out this other piece of tech that's basically gonna do the same thing? I also saw that it's smaller than the Steam Deck width wise, which I really like because I do think the Steam Deck, for all of its awesome pros, it is just a behemoth to use. Yeah,
Huge.
it's like I don't want to say embarrassing, but like when I pull it out in an airplane, I feel like I'm taking up my neighbor's space because it's just so giant. It's just too big. But it's the first one, so I'm sure Steam Deck 2 one day will be smaller. But yeah, I'm very excited for this Xbox Ally. That said, I do think it will easily be the most expensive piece of handheld technology on the market. I would not be surprised if this is like starting at 600 and then they have the X version, I think, or extreme version.
Mm-hmm.
If
X.
that was like 800 to $900, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm expecting this price point to be pretty dang high.
Yeah, I honestly, I could see it 600 and maybe 750, but 900 is really getting up there. Because by then it's just like, okay, well, I could just buy like a pretty decent gaming laptop.
Yeah,
But I know
maybe
that's
maybe before this year when the 50s messed up all that. Now I feel like getting into PC gaming is more expensive than ever. It sucks. Um,
that's fair.
yeah.
But anyway, if you were interested in that, like the Switch 2 is not sated your hunger for hybrid slash handheld gaming. Both the Xbox Ally and the Xbox Ally X are set to arrive this holiday season. And in the ongoing Hollow Knight Silksong saga, Microsoft featured it in its reveal trailer for the Xbox Ally, and in the process, it once again confirmed that it will be out before the end of this year. You may recall that during that same Xbox game showcase in 2022, Xbox confirmed that Hollow Knight Silksong would be out in the next 12 months, and obviously that did not happen. Wes, do you trust that this will finally be the year that Silksong hits its projected release date?
I It's tough because I want it to be this year and I feel like I do trust it's going to be this year because I don't understand, like I just can't imagine it being delayed further. It has been so long. But also, I don't even want to get my hopes up or anything because Xbox has burned us on this, although it's not completely Xbox's fault for with those marketing taglines. And then Team Cherry has also been wrong about this before. So like even after this conference, Team Cherry was like, yes, it's coming out this year. We're not attached to the launch of the ROG Ally, though. We will be playable there. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's coming out this year. I do think they're aiming for this year. They want it to be this year, but it could be November, and then they might just be like, we need more time. And I wouldn't be that upset because it's happened so many times at this point that I'm not even sure this is a real game. It's the unicorn of the indie scene.
Spoken like a man who has been hurt before. And so, can you recall when Silksong was first announced?
I cannot, but I want to say it was a Nintendo thing.
So it was February 2019 was
Oh
the
my
first
god,
time that Hollow Knight Silksong. So pre-COVID, like you look back at
that was 15 years
lockdown.
ago.
It was a full year before the Sonic 1 movie came out.
That's
Because remember,
and this
Sonic
was
1 was early February or February 14th, 2020, because it was Valentine's Day. I believe
yeah.
Hollow Knight Silksong was February 14th, 2019, a full calendar year before Sonic 1. Since then, we have had 3 Sonic movies, 3 full Hollywood blockbuster Sonic the Hedgehog movies.
And a spin-off show.
And a spin-off Paramount Plus TV show. Yes. So
And
it
we've
is,
also
I
had
mean,
probably at least 3 new Sonic games, if you don't count mobile, since
that's
that
true.
Hollow Knight announcement. And Silksong at that point in 2019, wasn't it just a DLC? Or
Hmm.
was that when they formally announced it as a game?
I think it was originally going to be, I know it was originally going to be DLC. I think that was when it was announced as DLC, and then they eventually spun it out to be its own thing because they're like, oh, this is getting way too big.
Yeah. I I feel bad and I don't feel bad for that team because it's I feel bad because they're probably just it's got to be a massive struggle, the weight of that pressure. Like there's I don't know if there's a world where they can deliver on the promise of the hype that is built up all this time. Um, but that's what happens whenever you like go be in an Xbox showcase that says we're coming out this year, and then 3 years pass and you're not out yet. Uh,
Hmm.
it's not great, and I'm sure they wish it didn't happen this way, but it did happen this way, and now they have an uphill battle of meeting expectations. Which, if it's
Yeah.
anything like Hollow Knight, it will. But I don't know. It's tough.
Well, if they are to be believed, we will have Hollow Knight Silksong before the end of this year, and it will either be, a massive success story or an underwhelming release that we waited 6 years for, 6.5 years by then, probably. So
Oof.
I'm looking forward to it though. Like I think that even if it's slightly underwhelming because of the hype that surrounds it, I still don't see a world where this team just completely craps the bed. But then again, we thought that about like Sports Story, at
I
the
was just about
sequel
to
to
bring
Golf
that up.
Story,
Yeah.
and it's like that was reportedly riddled with troubled development. There was that secret dev room where you could go in, and it was basically them talking about like all the troubled development and like the mismanagement that was happening in the game. Like you could find that room in the game with the developers. So I mean, we don't know what's happening behind the scenes. It is a little concerning that there's been like so few updates over the last 6 years. Like we have not really
Yeah.
seen anything in way of like meaningful gameplay. I don't know if any media has gotten its hands on the game, so that's
I think
concerning as
people did
well.
in like 2021 or something. There was like a thing overseas where somebody could play. And I think this year you can play Silk Song in Australia at a
Oh,
museum, if I remember correctly. I think there's like don't quote me on that, but I'm like 99% sure Silk Song will be in a museum this year and you can play it if you're in Australia, wherever that museum's
okay.
at. So like it's real, it exists, but it's tough. It's tough. It's hard not to get skeptical with the way this industry works whenever a game takes that long to in development, because time and time again, when a game takes that long in development, we often later learn that it's probably because of mismanagement on the executive side, or fighting happening in the studio, or visions clashing and there's not a clear focus moving forward. And I hope that's not the case here. I hope it's not like the sports story devs where it turns out people are very upset, or um, yeah, I don't know, maybe this game truly needed 6.5 years to make, but that's a big sell. We'll see.
Hmm. So, moving on, another big announcement from the Xbox Games Showcase was one that we've actually talked about on this podcast a couple of times. We finally got the official reveal of Persona 4 Revival, which appears to be a full on remake of one of the most loved RPGs of all time. No real information aside from the fact that the gameplay trailer said early development content, and that could mean that it's either very early in development, or it could mean that Atlas is just couching expectations since the footage is from a pre-release build, or it could just be old footage that they recorded, a year ago. There's really
Yeah.
no way to know. And then in that same beat, we got a statement from P Studio director Kazuhisa Wada, who talked about how the team, boilerplate stuff. The team's pouring all of its passion and energy into the game, excited to create a new game for new and returning fans, all the stuff you normally see in like press releases for remakes. But he ended the statement with, quote, "Additionally, we are actively preparing for the future development of the Persona series as a studio. We are working hard to meet the expectations of fans around the world, and our work is progressing well. Please stay tuned for more updates." And people listening to this may recall that last year we got Persona 3 Reload, which was basically this, but Persona 3. Um, and we got Metaphor last year as well from a different studio. But Wes, you were out in Tokyo with me when we visited Atlas for the Metaphor cover story that ended up not happening. We explored Sangenjaya with Hashino and Soejima from the team. We ate rice with fish unmentionables in it because Hashino ordered it for us, and we
Yeah.
gratefully accepted it. When you think the Persona franchise comes back, like what year pops into your head?
P6, or you mean like just the next Persona game?
I'm saying the next mainline Persona game.
Okay, so I mean 2029.
Ooh, that's rough. I mean,
Yeah.
I know you're a Persona fan. I'm a big Persona fan. The prospects of not having another all new Persona game for another 4 years, like, let me ask you this then: do you think the team is getting too remake happy? Because I've seen fans a little bit annoyed that we're getting these remakes instead of like new entries. Because the last mainline entry was Persona 5, and the base game of that came out in 2016 in Japan and then 2017 in the US. So like, we're rapidly approaching the decade mark for the series getting a new entry. And then obviously I mentioned Metaphor, which was from the team that spun off of the Persona series, but that's very much its own thing. So like, oh man, what's the earliest you see it? Your prediction is 2029, but what's the earliest you think we see a next mainline Persona game?
For release, for launch?
Yeah.
No way that it's out before. Certainly not next year. I don't think.
Mm.
I honestly, I don't know. 2028 maybe. I feel like Persona 4 is 2027. Based
Really? Wow.
on, I think what's happening here is, so Persona 5 solidified Persona as like one of it's the Atlas franchise. It's one of Sega's babies now. Um, they cared a lot about Persona 5, that team, the one that we met, but they went off and made Metaphor. They were ready to start a new franchise, and then Metaphor did really well. People love it. I think they're probably going to work on a Metaphor sequel. But in the process of doing that, they handed off the reins of Persona, the baby of that company, to a new team, like the P Studio, and they gave them Royal and Persona 3 Reload, right? Like these are ways to like bring that team up and make them the new Persona team. And I think that because of how much importance Persona has to those people that are now working on Metaphor, I think they're really trying to make sure that like Persona's in good hands. And I do think it's in good hands. And I think that Persona 3 Remake and Persona 4 presumably are great ways to get everybody up to speed and prepped and ready for what making a brand new mainline Persona game needs to be, especially after 5 just completely shattered expectations of what the series can be. Persona 5 took it to new heights, and matching that
Mm-hmm.
is going to be tough, very doable. So I just think they're just being cautious. And based on the trailer we saw for Persona 4 Revival, no release window, the early content development thing tag on the bottom, I really don't see this game coming out before 2027, and which probably means half the studio, maybe less, is incubating on Persona 6 or slowly working on it, and then the whole team won't be working on it till Persona 4 is out. So like I really do feel like 2028 if we're lucky, but 2029, yeah, unless the Metaphor team is like went back to Persona, but that would seem kind of weird, right? They explicitly split off and made a studio to harbor Persona's future.
Yeah, I mean, in talking with Hashino, I did ask him, why did you found Studio Zero when you could have just made Metaphor under P Studio? And he said, well, we wanted to keep it separate because, if we found this new studio and P Studio still exists, fans can like rest assured that we are still going to be making Persona games, whereas Studio Zero is founded specifically to not make Persona games. My prediction is actually going to be next year is Persona 4 Revival, so 2026 at some point,
Yeah,
and
you're
then
crazy for that.
I think late 2027 is going to be the next mainline Persona game.
I hope,
I think that
I hope that you're right and I'm wrong. I really do, because that would be incredible.
I mean 2 years between remakes, right? And like I think that's doable, but yeah, those games are massive. So
The thing with so 3 was like clearly let's Persona 5 3. Like let's bring Persona 3 up to the standard of 5. The thing with 4 is based on this small teaser trailer is it's like I think it's going to be a bit more than what Persona 3 Reload was. I feel like the art style is different. It almost has a more 3D look to it. It's not as anime looking. It still looks very anime like the rest of the series, but it's the most like non-anime looking we've seen. I feel like this is going to be way more of a remake than even Reload was, which would make sense because 4 has some issues with it that they would probably need to tackle and change if they're launching a game in the 2020s versus when that game first came out. And so I imagine this is a more top-down approach or from the bottom up approach than and Reload was too. But I feel like Reload was just let's get Persona 3 into the style of Persona 5. I think Persona 4 is going to be no more golden, no more original P4. Like it is the way to play Persona 4.
I mean, Golden is a fantastic version of it as well. So if you want to check that out, that's on Switch right now. And I don't think that you really lose much. And if it does, in fact, not come out till 2027, then, that's enough time if you play it now versus, 2027 to like want to re-experience it in a more modern capacity. But like, I will say that Persona 3 Portable, not a great way to play that game in 2025. Play Persona 3 Reload, but you will get along just fine playing P4G as it exists right now if you want to experience it, and you're not going to feel like, oh my god, this is such an antiquated thing. I went back from Persona 5 to Persona 4 Golden, even playing the Vita version, which was not high res textures or anything that the P4G that you have on Switch right now has. And I like there were some things like the procedurally generated dungeons where I'm like, okay, I like Persona 5 better in this regard, but the story is still fantastic. That you still get a definitive Persona experience. And I don't think that you should wait multiple years if you're like curious about Persona 4. I think that you could get Golden and you'd be perfectly fine.
Yeah, I agree. Quick, don't put too much thought into it. Rank Persona 5, 4, and 3.
I would say just like that, 5, 4, 3.
Okay. Oh, wow. 3 under 4. That's interesting. I feel like a lot of people put 3 higher up.
I like 3 a lot, and I like 3 Reload quite a bit. I think I bonded with the cast of 4 a little bit better. But like for me, it's like 5 far above everything else.
Yeah.
And then like 4 narrowly above 3, I think is how I would put it. Like, and it might vary on the day. Like if I replayed Persona 3 Reload, there's a very good chance that I would put that above P4G. But then again, I could play P4G tomorrow and come back and be like, okay, no, that's better than Persona 5. Like, I don't know. Like I've had enough distance from all of them at this point. Like, it's been over a year since I've played Persona 3 Reload. It's been, God, 6-7 years since I played P4G, and I played Persona 5 twice, once when it came out vanilla and once when it came out royal. And 5 I don't see ever being dethroned, but I would love to be proven wrong there because that means it's something truly special.
Yeah, I agree. 5 is one of my all-time favorites. It gets the cheat code of being set in Tokyo versus the other games because Tokyo, both of us, it's our favorite city ever. So like just being in Persona 5 and existing in that world is fun. I actually have not beaten 3 all the way, but so I'm from what I've played of 3, I would also put it at the bottom, but I have not played enough of 3 to like properly rank it. I played P4G on Vita as well and loved it there. But like you, Persona 5 is just, the gap could not be bigger. I adore Persona 5.
And by the way, this is not saying that Persona, I'm looking at my review here just to make sure I'm accurate. I'm not saying that Persona 3 Reload is a bad game. In fact, it's the worst ranked game that I just gave on the Persona series since it got like its current form. I still gave it an 8.75 out of 10, which is a very, very good review score. That's, bordering on an elite game. So just because I scored this an 8.75 and I gave Persona 5 Royal, I think a 9.25, it does not mean that I think that, P3 is bad. So
Yeah.
you can't go wrong playing any of those games. Unfortunately, P3R is not on Switch, which I would be shocked if we get to the end of this year and it's not at least announced for Switch 2.
It has to be. And honestly, that's if it is announced for Switch 2, that's probably where I'm going to play it and pick it up and go from
That
there.
and Metaphor both, honestly. Like I would be shocked if we get out of
Ooh.
2025 without those games both being announced for Switch 2. And both
Yeah.
of them are well worth playing too. They're both fantastic games. But Wes, speaking of remakes, if people listen to this show, they know that I am super excited for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4. I gave my impressions on the show a few weeks ago, and they had a new trailer, which, by the way, opened with a quote from me. So immediately on my
So
good
cool.
graces there.
Yeah.
And then they showed off a little bit of Bam Margera gameplay, which is cool because I think up to that point we had only seen him like talking about how he was in the game. We hadn't actually seen him in the game. And then they revealed that Michelangelo from the Ninja Turtles is a playable skater. So that's also immediately hitting me and pulling at my heartstrings because, like, you know, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater was one of my favorite games in childhood. And now they're taking the very first pop culture obsession I ever had in my life, which was Ninja Turtles, and putting them together like in some weird like peanut butter and jelly situation. You know, sign me up. And it works perfectly because Michelangelo is a skateboarder in Ninja Turtles. How does this not happen before? That's my question with like the Tony Hawk's franchise. But they also showed off a pinball stage that takes place inside of a pinball machine. I haven't played that, but I will say that if it's anything as good as the new water park stage that I did play, it'll fit right in with the rest of the stages. We're almost there with this game, Wes. We're less than a month away from Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4. How are you feeling about it?
I'm pretty excited. I was an underground, and maybe this is what I'm about to say is blasphemous. My Tony Hawk, I don't know if it's going to get remade, but it's American Wasteland. So for me, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4 is going to be like kind of going back and learning a bit. I played them, but it was on my older brother's console at the time, so they weren't like my games. So I have like a lot to catch up on as far as 3 and 4 goes. And I'm really excited to do that. I loved 1 and 2.
Did you play 1 and 2? Okay.
Yeah. Loved 1 and 2.
I mean, that's fantastic. I would say 3 and 4 is actually doing more to modernize it. They're changing the format of the 4th career mode, obviously. With in the original version, the 4th career mode was kind of like free roam. It wasn't timed like every other Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. So they are making it timed again, so it fits in with the rest of the package. And they're also adding new like skaters, a lot more skaters than they added in 1 and 2. They're also adding new levels, which is something they didn't do in 1 and 2. So, and you know, the one that I played and the one that I've seen both look incredible and creative, and they don't feel like cheap knockoffs. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. It's cool that Bam is back in the game as well, because I know he'd kind of been going through a tough period. I know, like with the Jackass crew, he was kind of not able to return to that. And so I'm glad that he didn't lose this other like pillar of his life in pop culture. I think it's really cool that he's back.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm excited to check it out. I couldn't tell you the differences between 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. That's how like uncultured I am on the Tony Hawk Pro Skater series. Whereas like Underground and American Wasteland, those 3 games, that's like my Tony Hawk.
Yeah, it is. I mean, 1 and 2 were the ones that were like the peak of my fandom, but I played 3, 4, Underground, Underground 2, American Wasteland, and Project 8 before I like ultimately fell off. But you know, I even the like lesser than versions of the Tony Hawk's franchise, I still found a lot of fun in those. Like even 5, which is, I think most people would agree, the far and away worst entry in the series, I still had fun with it. I did go back and try to play 5 recently, and I'm like, okay, nope. I have 1 and 2. I don't ever need to go back and play this. But like that was at a time, I think 5 came out at a time where we didn't have any Tony Hawk like core games on like Xbox One and PS4. So it was like, oh, I'll just take whatever they give me. But like after playing 1 and 2 and trying to play 5, I was like, nope, not about this. But yeah, 1 and 2 is currently on Switch, and then 3 and 4 hits July 11th on both Switch and Switch 2 and all the other platforms. So not
Yeah,
much
super
longer now.
exciting.
I'm very excited for that game to come out. Wes, we don't have to dwell on this one too much since the game is not announced for Switch. But it's interesting to note for Nintendo fans because during the Xbox Games Showcase, we learned about Beast of Reincarnation. And it is a post apocalyptic action RPG set in Japan. And like I said, it's not coming to Switch. So why are we talking about it? Well, if you look at the lower right hand corner of the trailer at the very end, it is developed by none other than Game Freak, aka the studio behind every single mainline Pokemon game. And I don't know about you, Wes, but my first reaction when I saw this trailer was, oh, someone showed Game Freak where they keep the high res textures.
Yeah,
Because goodness gracious, it looks beautiful.
yeah, it pissed me off at first because I'm like, okay, so they got the stuff, they can do it. What the heck happened with Scarlet and Violet? We've learned now it might have been the Switch power just a little bit since it runs a lot better on Switch too. But yeah, this is awesome. I love seeing Game Freak join the rest of the industry in 2025 with uh, standard graphics that deliver on the promise of gaming. It's really exciting. Have you? Something I did after this reveal was I went and watched a bunch of random streams that were watching this, and it is hilarious every time to see, oh wow, this looks awesome, this is cool, what the, and then Game Freak pops up and what the, oh my, Game Freak, it's so awesome. It's great.
I mean, that was exactly what happened with us, where we were just
Yeah,
like, wait, Game Freak? And
we knew they were
I did a
making
little bit of
something,
digging.
but
Yeah, so I did a little bit of digging, and I found that the director, Kota Furushima, is his name. And he's bounced around Game Freak a little bit over the last decade. He's been working on the Pokemon franchise for most of his time there. And he did the battle systems, or he worked on the battle systems in Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, and Sword and Shield. And then he joined the sound team, oddly enough, for Legends Arceus and Scarlet and Violet. So he's, you know, multidisciplinarian apparently, because he worked on both
yeah,
battle and sound. And unfortunately, right now it's coming to all the other major platforms in 2026, but not Switch or Switch 2, at least not yet. But do you think it is intentional for Game Freak to not release on Switch 2 as like a strategy to kind of differentiate themselves and diversify their platform portfolio?
I think so. I don't know if like leaving out Switch 2 on purpose is part of that, but I do think it's very intentional to branch outside of Switch 2, or just Nintendo in general, and like remind people that like we aren't just a Pokemon company. And like when they do branch out, they have made some good games before. I know people like the Card Jockey, I think it's called.
Pocket
Um,
Card Jockey.
yeah. So I'm excited to see what they can do. I do think this will come to Switch 2. And I'm curious on your thoughts on this. I expected to see the Switch 2 logo so much more this past week during conferences than I did. And it makes me think not that the Switch 2 is going to get shafted by third-party developers, kind of like it did in Switch 1 a little bit. I really just do feel that like Nintendo was very stingy with handing this console out, and people don't know if their games are coming to Switch 2 yet. But I was shocked. Like I could not believe how I think the Switch 2 logo appeared once, and it was for an ad during Summer Games Fest for Cyberpunk. I don't know if we saw Switch 2, even on the indie announcements, nothing about Switch 2. And I'm perplexed by that. So maybe that's why Game Freak's game didn't have a Switch 2 logo.
Yeah, it is kind of wild, especially since there was so much rampant speculation when Jeff Keighley shared out hey, here are the partners for Summer Game Fest this year, and there was the Nintendo Switch 2 logo, and it's like everybody was speculating. It was Jeff Gerstmann who originally pointed it out, former Giant Bomb founder, where he was like, hey, like those partners could be like they have a world premiere trailer of like their next big AAA game, or it could be that they just bought an ad space for like the Summer Game Fest stream. And it turns out that seemed to be the case for the SGF stream. But let me ask you this. Say Beast of Reincarnation comes out, amazing, like it's really great review scores. We'll say even like high 80s Metacritic, sells well, People love it. Is there any world that you could conceive of by the end of 2030, Game Freak is known as anything other than the Pokemon studio?
No, I just that company can try all they want, and unless there's a huge falling out, which I don't think there will be, there's just that's their legacy. That is Game Freak is synonymous with Pokemon, even more so than like the Pokemon company itself. Like, I don't know if they can escape that shadow, but then again, it's not really the worst shadow to have. It's the most profitable entertainment IP ever, I think.
Yeah,
Not a
it's not
bad
even
horse to
close.
like attach yourself to. Yeah. So I think maybe they want to make a name for themselves outside of Pokemon a little bit, but I can't imagine they're bummed that all of our stories are going to be like Pokemon developer Game Freak releases new trailer for Beast of Reincarnation. Like it's just that's how people know them and that's what they're going to be forever. Even if this game is like a 10, if it's like a generational Breath of the Wild style game, I still think they're going to be the Pokemon company first.
Yeah, well, the Pokemon company is a separate company.
Yeah, true, true, true.
But the Pokemon Studio, yeah, I think that it would be very difficult for them to ever escape that shadow. But then again, like Nintendo is like you say Nintendo, and you don't have to be like, oh yeah, the company that makes Mario. Like people
Yeah,
just know Nintendo and like know them for multiple things. Like if you ask somebody like, hey, what's your favorite Nintendo game? Like there's a good chance they'll say something Mario related, but like they could also say Zelda, they could say Animal Crossing, they could say any number of things. I don't see Game Freak reaching that level anytime soon, but like, hey, if Beast of Reincarnation is great, and then there's another game that they put together that's awesome, like in 2029 or something, they could be on their way to establishing themselves as that. It's just that the Pokemon franchise has a 30-year head start, so it's
yeah,
going to be difficult for anything to usurp it in terms of like what they're most well known for.
yeah. Question for you: do you think Game Freak remains the primary developer of the mainline Pokemon games throughout the Switch 2 generation?
I think it's going to come down to if Legend ZA and the next Pokemon mainline game can run well on Switch 2 and if they're
Yeah,
received
yeah,
well. If they, for whatever reason, like if like Pokemon whatever and whatever come out in like 2026, 2027, the whatever the next mainline ones are, and they run like garbage on Switch 2, I think there is a real world where the Pokemon company goes to them and says, "Hey, like we're going to let another studio that we've worked with in the past, like I don't know, one of the studios that has done like the remakes or something like that, or we're going to partner with, I mean, in a world where it's like, hey, we're going to partner with Square Enix to put out the next Pokemon game."
ooh,
Like,
yeah,
there is a chance that that happens, but I think that's like a very big long shot. I think that it would be wild. It would not only have to take a critically bashed Pokemon game, but it would also have to take one that just doesn't sell at all. Which even Scarlet and
yeah,
Violet sold well, but then again, as I pointed out a couple weeks ago, the bad games usually sell decent. Bad games in long running franchises that have like good sales, they usually sell decent. It's the game after that that doesn't sell well. Like say Madden 26 comes out this fall and it's the worst Madden ever. You might get similar sales to what you got last year on that Madden just because people are like, "Oh, it's the new Madden game. I'm going to buy it." It's Madden 27 that will sell
yeah,
poorly because people are like, I got burned last time. I'm not going to repeat that. Like I said, I think the phrase that I used is games pay for the sins of their predecessors. So
yeah,
if the next Pokemon game comes out and it is both critically and fan bashed and it doesn't sell well, then they might start looking around. But like, as long as these games sell well, I think that the Pokemon company is going to just let Game Freak continue to develop it. And I don't think Game Freak's going to relinquish control of their most lucrative franchise because, they are at the end of the day, the studio that has ownership in the IP. Like
yeah,
it's all owned. It's like a split between Pokemon Company, Game Freak, Creatures, and Nintendo for the Pokemon franchise. So I don't know what it would take or what the arrangement is, but I imagine it would have to take something pretty catastrophic to remove Game Freak as the mainline Pokemon devs.
Yeah, I agree. I hope it doesn't happen, but I am curious what a mainline game developed by a different team could look like. I just don't want it to be at the expense of Game Freak shutting down or something like that, you know?
Oh, if Game Freak gets shut down, that means nobody is safe because,
Yeah, that means
like
the
you said,
industry is free falling.
yeah, that means that the games industry has crashed if Game Freak ever
Yeah.
gets shut down because, like you said, most profitable entertainment franchise of all time, and it's all anchored in the games, right? Like the anime
Yeah.
is successful, the card games are successful, the merch side is extremely successful, but those don't exist without those games.
Yep.
So yeah, I think that, I think there's a lot of interplay between that, like scheduling, like, okay, we got the card games coming out, like the next expansions have to start this year. We need a new mainline game to do that. So it's all like one big ecosystem. But at the same time, without the games, like what happens? Like the games feed into all those other things, and they go. I don't see any world where that happens. Now that I think about it more, like it would again have to take something extremely catastrophic for Game
Yep.
Freak not to be the developer. But
Agreed.
let's move on. Let's move on. During the PlayStation State of Play, which was another one of the many, many streams over the last week, we learned about Final Fantasy Tactics, the Ivalice Chronicles, which is a remaster package with the original Final Fantasy Tactics and the War of Lions translation, fully voiced with optimized US graphical improvements, various quality of life features, and the classic version of the game updates the gameplay and visuals. It's all going to be more in line with War of the Lions and have modern functions like autosave. So, Wes, I've never played Final Fantasy Tactics, but I know several people who call it their favorite Final Fantasy game. Do you have any history with this game?
Yeah, it's incredible. It's not my favorite, but it is as good as everyone says. And like, it's very exciting that we're going to be playing this version coming up. Uh, it was heavily rumored that we'd be getting this. I've seen some people call it a remake, maybe even Square. It definitely falls. They haven't been super clear. This feels more like a remaster to me. The remake I was picturing in my head was the HD 2D style Final Fantasy Tactics that I guess Square Enix is not making because they don't want to use that. They don't want to use that beautiful engine they've created for games that just make sense with it, like Final Fantasy VI. That said, very excited to play through these. All the new options is great. The War of the Lions translation is really cool. I'm pretty sure Ben Starr, the voice of Clive, protagonist of Final Fantasy 16, is in this remaster as one of the voice characters based on the trailer. That's really exciting. It's a game that people need to play. And did it have a Switch 2 or a Switch logo associated with
It
it?
is Switch and Switch 2, as well as every other major platform on September 30th.
Okay, perfect. Then yeah, this is like a quintessential Switch 2 game, I think. I can't wait.
Absolutely. I have no history with it whatsoever, but I have always wanted to check it out, and now it seems like it's going to be the best way to check it out. So I'm looking forward to that. Square Enix doing a lot of remakes these days.
Yeah, they've been struggling on the new IP front, so I'm not surprised. They're kind of digging back into their pretty incredible and stellar chest of games.
One day you'll get your Final Fantasy 13 remake, Wes. Hold out
No,
hope.
I don't even want to I just want to port. Let me freaking play the game on my PlayStation or my Switch 2, please, God. Xbox now has every mainline Final Fantasy game, excluding 11 because it's some MMO. Blah blah blah. You can play the entire series now, and I can't do that on PlayStation. One of the primary homes of Final Fantasy. It's heartbreaking. It kills me.
Can't you do it on like one of the PlayStation Plus tiers? Like, isn't it backwards compatible
No, you
there?
have
I
to
don't know.
actually have a PS3 to play Final Fantasy 13 on a
Oh
PlayStation
my
console.
God.
It's not
That's
available through the
absurd.
stream. Yeah,
Well, it's a good
it's a
thing it's
shame.
not very good, so you don't have to worry about that.
I'm leaving. Goodbye.
That is Wes's favorite Final Fantasy.
Yes.
You know what studio I really like, Wes? Drinkbox
Hmm.
Studios.
Yeah.
So they are the company that does Guacamelee, Severed, and Nobody Saves the World. They announced their next game during Summer Game Fest. It is called Blighted, and it looks kind of like Hades, but they are describing it as a Metroidvania, and it can be played solo or in co-op, and you're exploring a post-apocalyptic world from an isometric perspective with fast-moving combat and a combo focus being the core driver of gameplay. It's currently only available on Steam, or it's currently set to only come to Steam, but the studio has put almost every single one of its games on Switch. Even games that came out 5 years before the Switch came out, they brought to Switch. And they are calling it their most ambitious game to date. So that is enough to pique my interest. And, everybody points to Guacamelee and Nobody Saves the World as kind of like the games for this studio. But if you don't mind touchscreen controls, Severed is also superb, and I recommend
I agree.
that.
That's my favorite Drinkbox game. I didn't really vibe with Nobody Saves the World too much, to be honest.
I've heard some people really, really love that game.
Yeah.
But Wes, we're going to be discussing my hands-on preview of Shinobi Art of Vengeance and your hands-on preview of Ninja Gaiden Ragebound in the next segment. Both of them are brilliant, beautiful 2D revivals of classic series from either the NES or the Genesis days, and they're being developed by renowned indie developers. And Ninja Gaiden Ragebound got a release date just this last week. It's coming to us from the Game Kitchen, which did one of my favorite 2D action games from the last generation, which is Blasphemous 2. And the new trailer for the game tells us that it is arriving on Switch and every other major platform on July 31st. We're not going to talk too much about that right now because we're going to talk about it in the main segment. Also, a quick hit that we want to do here. Now that Street Fighter 6 is officially on Switch 2, we can talk about news related to it. So Street Fighter 6 is already on year 3 of its DLC plan, which is wild to me because I still have fond memories of Alex Van Aken and I going to Osaka to write the cover story of Street Fighter 6. And they made this announcement of year 3 with pro wrestler Kenny Omega cosplaying all of the characters in the year 3 character pass. So Sagat, who first debuted in Street Fighter 2, comes out this summer. Sea Viper, who appeared in Street Fighter 4 for the first time, comes this fall. Alex, who debuted as the main protagonist of Street Fighter 3, comes early spring 2026. And then Ingrid, who first appeared in Capcom Fighting Evolution and then eventually appeared in Street Fighter with Street Fighter Alpha 3 Max, is coming late spring 2026. So I'm always going to be excited about Street Fighter 2 characters coming in these games because that's, that's the game that I played religiously as a kid. But I'm also looking forward to Alex because they kind of positioned him as kind of like the new face of the series in 3, and then people kind of rejected him, and they were like, oh, wait, let's go back to Ryu. Quick. Do you have any hype for any of these characters?
No, not really. I fell off of 6, not because it's a bad game. I just, with this job, we play a lot of stuff and sometimes there's casualties, and 6 was one of them. I really wanted 6 to be like my Street Fighter. I wanted to get really good at it. It didn't happen. But it is cool. And I enjoyed the trailer because you were like, Marcus, our coworker Game Informer, take this, because it looked like it was a wrestling trailer. And then it becomes a Street Fighter trailer, which Marcus also likes Street Fighter. So it worked out. But it was really funny watching all that happen in real time.
Yeah, because what game is going to have Kenny Omega, who I'm not a big pro wrestling guy, but I know him because he's like one of the more well-known wrestlers, and he's a big gamer. And what other game is going to have him sitting in a locker room in full wrestling attire, and it's not a wrestling game? So, I mean, it was very funny though when they pulled that swerve, because I was like, oh, this must be like the next WWE or AEW, whatever organization he's in now. Must be that. But no, Street Fighter 6 year 3. So that's going to start hitting this summer with Sagat, which I'm super excited for. Speaking of fighting games, Wes, Atari and Digital Eclipse. You know that I have a tremendous amount of respect for Digital Eclipse. They've announced Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection. So the people who have not heard me gush about Digital Eclipse in the past, this is a studio that did Atari 50. It's the studio that did TMNT Cowabunga Collection. They did Tetris Forever. They're basically the masters of the retro collection at this point. And Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection is going to have more than 20 different versions of these classic games. So Mortal Kombat 1 uh, arcade, SNES, Genesis, Game Boy, and Game Gear versions, which, by the way, the Game Gear version was the only one I was allowed to have as a kid because it didn't have blood in it. And then I found that there was a code. I think a GamePro magazine published there was a code that you could do to add blood, and I found out and I entered that because I wanted like the most full version of Mortal Kombat possible. My parents saw me playing that on my Game Gear, and they immediately took away my Mortal
Oof.
Kombat Game
Yeah.
Gear cartridge. I later told Ed Boon that story, and he was like, "Tell your parents I said I'm sorry." So I did. So that my parents now have, an apology from Ed Boon. Mortal Kombat 2, there's the arcade, SNES, Genesis, Game Boy, and the 32X version, which I'm stoked for because 32X is not a game that, or not a system that gets emulated very often. So that's fun. Mortal Kombat 3, the arcade, SNES, and Genesis version. Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, the arcade and the SNES version. Mortal Kombat 4 of all games, the arcade version, which I think that is going to definitely be a kind of a archival game that is part of this collection because boy oh boy does nobody want to play Mortal Kombat 4. Mortal Kombat Advance, there's the Game Boy Advance version because that's the only version that existed. Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance's Game Boy Advance version, Mortal Kombat Tournament Edition Game Boy Advance version, and then they teased more to come. So this bundle is going to feature modern updates to the game, online play with rollback netcode, and then in typical Digital Eclipse fashion, they will also carry forward the interactive documentary format. They're going to have interviews with Ed Boon and John Tobias, who are the co-creators. Dan Forden, who is the sound director of all those games. He's the guy who pops on your screen and says, "Toasty," and more. And then as well as a timeline of the series, character profiles, a feature on secrets within the game, because that is a huge part of Mortal Kombat culture, concept art, archival footage, and a lot more. We don't know when exactly it comes out, but it's coming to Switch and Switch 2 later this year. Wes, how much of a Mortal Kombat guy are you?
I'm not the biggest Mortal Kombat guy because I wasn't allowed to play a bunch of them growing up. So I didn't really get on until like 10 or maybe 9 onward. I was very into Tekken though. I don't know why that was okay with my parents, especially because my favorite character was the devil or Satan or whatever. Whenever he turns into like devil form. But I'm very excited for this
Devil
because
Jin.
yes, yeah, exactly. I have Digital Eclipse does amazing things with their games, and I'm very excited to go through the interactive documentary version of this game. For all the Mortal Kombats I haven't played, I have a lot of familiarity with Ed Boon and like that studio's work and their history and the way it's like shifted in and out of politics over time. And I'm excited to see what this documentary entails. Like, it's going to be something I watch for like education purposes, and I'm really excited for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that. Like I said, Digital Eclipse, one of my favorite studios, especially, I mean, they're the studio when it comes to retro collections, and
Hmm.
the Mortal Kombat franchise I've been a fan of since the first entry. So yeah, looking forward to seeing what this team can put together. Some of the bigger games from the weekend include like Resident Evil Requiem and The Outer Worlds, but those aren't announced for Switch 2 just yet. But if they do get an announcement in the future, we'll try and circle back to discuss them. But Wes, we're going to end this very much elongated news segment on what seems like very good news. The video games actors strike could very well be over soon, as they announced they've reached a tentative agreement with SAG-AFTRA over AI use and other issues. If it is accepted, this agreement will impact studios and companies like Activision, Disney, EA, Epic Games, Insomniac, Take-Two, Warner Brothers, and more. And we don't have too many specific details. You had an update this morning, though, right?
Yeah, I actually do have some more details on that. So the strike is over as of today at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, noon Pacific. So that's exciting.
Hey.
They were allowed to return to work on productions with the interim interactive media agreement, which is like the not finalized contract, but the contract that is getting close to ratification. And it's like a group of companies that they're allowed to work with. And then I also got an update from the interactive media agreement spokesperson party, which I will read the good parts right here. Again, none of this is final. So this is all tentative. But if this wording is remains final, This new contract delivers historic wage increases of over 24% for performers, enhanced health and safety protections, and industry leading AI provisions requiring transparency, consent, and compensation for the use of digital replicas in game. So 24% raise, not too shabby. Enhanced health and
No.
safety precautions and protections. That's great, obviously. Industry leading AI provisions requiring transparency, consent, and compensation for use of digital replicas in games is interesting. It sounds like not a complete win over AI. Ideally, maybe they were able to fight back and be like, no, you can't just make AI of us. It seems like that's where we're heading as a society for all its faults. But I'm glad that if companies are going to be doing AI, at least these people are getting paid for it, and consent is a part of it, which is a big deal. So, like, say what you want about AI. If an actor consents his likeness or her likeness and voice away, and they're going to get money that they feel compensates them appropriately, then that's then I can only be happy for them. That's what they wanted. That's what they're choosing to do. So ultimately, I think this is a great tentative agreement, and I'm excited to see if it's going to happen.
Yeah, and I, like you said, the consent part is the big thing. We just saw this announcement of, what is it? Universal is suing, and I guess Disney. Like, is it Universal and Disney are suing
Yeah.
Midjourney, which is the generative
Mm-hmm.
AI app that could set some precedents. Which
Yeah.
I'm, we need to have. AI itself is not inherently evil, but the way that it can be used is. And
Yeah.
there needs to be, I'm not anti AI in the sense that, like, I don't think AI should exist, or I don't think there's any use cases for AI. I just think there needs to be some regulation, and there needs to be some degree of reining in these tech companies that are just going to use it to basically make the wealth gap even larger, because it's making it so they can just do all this stuff themselves and keep all the profits without having to pay people. That is what hopefully this SAG-AFTRA and video games voice actors agreement will do, and that's hopefully what this Universal and Disney lawsuit will also do. So that those are my greatest hopes, because AI is not going away. It's only going to
No.
become more ingrained in our culture and in technology. The best we can hope for is some degree of regulation, and this seems like great steps in those directions.
Meanwhile, Google's scraping GameInformer.com and stealing our words without consent, and it's not compensating us.
Yeah,
But alas,
but again, hopefully, like I said, setting precedents, and these are steps in the right direction towards ultimately what we want, which is, not plummeting every other actor in a business under, just in the name of one company getting all the profits based on its AI,
yeah.
which is what Google's doing right now. But Wes, we are going to take our first break of this episode, and when we get back, we will be talking about a few upcoming games I've gotten my hands on during my recent travels, as well as some you've been checking out during Steam Next Fest. We will be right back. We are back, and I have been traveling relentlessly over the last month, and now I can finally talk about some of the stuff that I've been playing while out on the road. Primarily, the team at Sega was gracious enough to invite me to their Burbank Sonic Team studio to give me hands-on with a few games. I'm going to be talking about two of those, and then we'll get into some of the other titles I have been playing that may or may not be coming to Switch or Switch 2. So, Wes, you also been playing some stuff over on that Steam Next Fest. I'm going to start with one, and then I'll throw it to you to talk about a similar game. We already alluded to it in the first segment of this episode. It is Shinobi Art of Vengeance. That is a 2D game that is being co-developed with Sega and Lizard Cube. Lizard Cube is the studio behind Streets of Rage 4. They also did Wonder Boy: The Dragon's Trap. And this game freaking slaps. I will be the first to tell you that I was excited for this when it first got announced. Absolutely gorgeous, hand drawn, like art style. It's one of the most gorgeous games I've ever seen in motion. It is a 2D revival of this franchise that got its start, I think, in 1987, 1988, something like that. And it really does feel like a modern version of those games that were so huge back in like the Genesis. So I played two levels. It's Oboro Village and Lantern Festival. Oboro Village is the first level in the game. I don't know where exactly Lantern Festival takes place in the game. It feels like it's pretty early still, but Oboro Village is just 100% like a tutorial, like a thinly veiled tutorial stage that teaches you like all the basics. You you start out and it's just you with your sword and your kunai that are like your throwing daggers, and you can upgrade those. Like you get currency as you go through the game, and you can buy upgrades to your kunai, your health, all kinds of stuff for this. But then as you explore, you also find these different upgrades to your abilities. So there are different stances that you can take to access different abilities. So there's ninja stances and ninjutsu stances, and the ninja stance gives you access to abilities like the Shinobi execution, which like when you deal enough damage to an enemy, they can get staggered, and when they're staggered, you can access the Shinobi execution. It just instantly kills any staggered enemies on screen. And they also like have more drops, like they drop more like currency and upgrade stuff and everything. There's the fire ninpo, which is just basically you throw a fireball, pretty self-explanatory. And then there's the water ninpo, which surrounds you with water and basically serves as almost like a counter, like a parry mechanic in this game. And then there's the ninjutsu stance, which the only one that I saw there was the Karyu, which is like a screen clearing, engulf all the enemies in flames move. Seems very powerful. Um, there was a ghost samurai mini boss that I actually fought at the end of the Oboro village, and he had like undodgeable, unblockable attacks, but it really was like the first skill check that I came up against, and it just feels so good moving through this game. It feels so good to attack enemies in whatever way you want, like being able to like combo together like different attacks, like and the combo meter is cool because it doesn't disappear just because like you run out of enemies. It disappears when you get hit, so there's not like this mad dash to be like, oh my god, I got to keep up because like it expires after like 5 seconds of not hitting anybody. It was like, okay, well, I cleared this screen. I have like a 52 hit combo going. That is going to carry until I see my next enemies. And some some abilities that you get, like there are amulets that you can get. Some of them are passive, some of them are active. Like one of the active ones that I had was like your kunai pierced through multiple enemies. And then there was another one that was like once you reach this certain combo, you deal like extra damage or stuff like that. So there's a lot of really cool augmentations you can make to your character. And the way that I also talked to the developer and like the director of the game, and then also the two people in Sega, that one is overseeing this like kind of like reviving of the retro IP initiatives, and the other one is serving as the producer of this game. And he was talking about how like later on in the game, the combo system and like the moves that you have at your disposal become so intricate if you want them to, that it can start feeling like a fighting game more than like a 2D action platformer, which is really cool. And like Oboro Village was super like straightforward. Just like, okay, you move from one side to the next and basically fighting enemies, clearing the screen and all that stuff. Nothing too crazy there. But Lantern Festival started feeling like almost like a Metroidvania, where it was like, all right, well, there's something there. I can't get to that, so I need to come back. So like I unlocked an ability, and I was like, oh yeah, like I can now punch through walls because I have the cannon punch ability. There's ningi abilities and the mobility upgrades. So like the ninja claws lets you climb on certain walls, and then there's the cannon punch that lets you punch through walls. There's another one that I didn't unlock during my playthrough where it was like you can jump up and slam down, and it lets you shatter like certain types of floors. So I remember like I saw in Oboro Village that there was like platforms that looked like they could be shattered, and I can go back and get like chests, and it's like, oh man, that would be really awesome to like get that ability and then go back, and you can fast travel to any part of the game using the checkpoints that you come across. So it really seems like they're going for a really replayable one as well. And it's just one of those games where I didn't want to relinquish the controller when I was done with it. I wanted to keep playing it. I wanted to see what else this game had in store. I was so mad that like I couldn't finish Lantern Festival before my demo was up. I only had like 35 minutes with it. And it is instantly near the top of my most anticipated list. And if you want to read my full hands-on impressions, you can go to GameInformer.com. And I also wrote a huge in-depth feature on the making of the game that you can also find on GameInformer.com. And it's coming to Switch and other, like basically every other major platform on August 29th. So something to look forward to there. Wes, I have two other games I want to talk about, but there's a game that slots in pretty freaking nicely with that one that you've been playing. Tell me about Ninja Gaiden Ragebound.
Yeah, so it's funny listening you describe Shinobi. I'm like, this is very, very similar to Ninja Gaiden, which comes out, I think, July 31st. I don't have it in front of me, so
Yeah,
not even a month away from Shinobi. But similar to Shinobi, it is like a 2D, gorgeous pixel art action platformer, and it just feels so dang good. There's a Steam Next Fest demo right now that you can check out on PC. You get to play a couple levels, the tutorial, and then like a couple more after that. It's not doing anything like groundbreaking, but it just feels so good because it's the studio is the Game Kitchen, which they're behind the Blasphemous series, and if you've played the Blasphemous games, you know those feel incredible, and their
they're
art style
awesome
too. So Ninja Gaiden's a perfect fit, kind of like Lizard Cube and Shinobi. And it just feels so good. The guillotine jump, like where you use your like spinning attack on top of a projectile to get extra range in your jump, it just never gets old. I do it. It's just I'm constantly doing it. It turns the game to like this almost like speed runish platformer puzzle fest where I'm just trying to get through levels as fast as I can without getting hit. Similar to Shinobi, it keeps track of like your combo and how many hits deep you are into it. Um, I haven't played Shinobi, but I suspect Ninja Gaiden's probably harder, just given the pedigree of the franchise. Like Ninja Gaiden is always been a challenging series, and this is no different. The first boss kicked my butt, but it was very satisfying to defeat that boss and learn its moves and figure out, okay, I need to dodge here, I need to roll here, I need to hop over here, do a guillotine jump. It's a
Well,
real
not to
treat.
mention, like, the Game Kitchen makes very difficult games to begin with. Like the Blasphemous games are extremely difficult. So
Yeah,
when you
they
take
are.
a franchise like Ninja Gaiden that is traditionally difficult, it's only going to, stack with that pedigree. Whereas like Shinobi was also very difficult back in the day, but like Lizard Cube isn't known for putting out like the most incredibly difficult games the way Game Kitchen is.
Yeah, and this wasn't even like that tough, but I know that it's going to get really tough based on kind of where the difficulty ramped up near the end, and it did ramp up a good bit. The music is incredible. It's so awesome. Again, similar to Shinobi, like it's really cool to be seeing these two ninja games come back with like this awesome, gorgeous looking 2D art and play style, and I can't wait. I'm excited to see what they do with Shinobi after this. We know that Ragebound is more of like a tide over till Ninja Gaiden 4 later this year. So I'm excited to see where Shinobi goes after this game.
Well, I asked them that, and they said that, like, if this is successful, there's already a Shinobi movie in the works.
Oh,
And then they also said, like, we would love to continue creating Shinobi games. Like, they want to see this as like, these are not just like, hey, we're throwing fans of these games from back in the day a bone. Like, they're legitimately approaching this like, if Shinobi is successful, we'll see more Shinobi games. If Crazy Taxi is successful when they revive that franchise, maybe we'll see more Crazy Taxi. Jet Set Radio, same situation. So it really seems like they are like this was all born from them saying like, in recent years, Sega has just become known for Sonic and Like a Dragon. And
yep.
outside of that, like Sega has like little games here and there, but they're like, if you ask somebody, what does Sega make? They either say Sonic or Like a Dragon. And they're like, we have so many more games than that. Like we need to capitalize on that. We need to create Sega fans where there aren't Sega fans right now, because like maybe somebody's not a Like a Dragon or a Sonic fan, but they could be a Crazy Taxi or a Jet Set Radio fan, or they could be a Streets of Rage fan. So that's really what they're trying to accomplish. And I think Shinobi, based on what I played, feels like an incredible place to start.
I'm very excited for that. And it's back to back. Like Ninja Gaiden, by the time I'm done with it, it'll be time for Shinobi. That's awesome. Great summer for ninjas.
Absolutely. I mean, great year for ninjas. We're also we got Assassin's Creed Shadows. We're getting Ghost of Yote later this year. Lots of great ninja content coming out. There's also what else is coming out?
I mean, Ninja Gaiden 4 comes out. They
Ninja Gaiden 4
did that re-release of Ninja Gaiden 2. There's certainly more ninja stuff coming.
I feel like there's a ninja movie that was also like in the works, but I don't know.
Somewhere, I'm sure there is.
Us just scratching our head is great podcast content. So the next game that I want to talk about is, Sega said they were known primarily for Sonic and Like a Dragon, and that's one of the games we're going for here, Sonic Racing CrossWorlds. So again, I got about 35 minutes with this game, and I emerged thinking like, okay, this is a very good kart racer that is probably going to be completely overshadowed by Mario Kart. And that's the unfortunate reality of any game coming out in the kart racing genre within any kind of blast radius of Mario Kart, let alone the same calendar year. But that said, I did come out of it thinking like, this is definitely going to be like a good claim to like be like not that distant of a second. Like I would say the distance between Mario Kart World and what I played of Sonic Racing CrossWorlds is smaller than what I would say is my distance between Persona 5 and Persona 4 in terms of like how much I like it.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I played the Grand Prix, and the big thing with Sonic Racing CrossWorlds is there are the CrossWorlds that happen like, so you do one lap on like the track that you're playing, and then the character in first place has 2 rings appear in front of them, each one with a different level, and they get to choose which level the second lap is going to take place in. So like you could be playing on one level, and then it's like, okay, well, we're going to transport to this level now. And sometimes there's those levels are, and these levels are not small levels by any means. Like they are fully featured stages with like set dressing and everything. Like there's one where it's like, okay, for lap 2, we're going to a dinosaur level where like there are literal dinosaurs walking over top of you as you race through that. So it's like, these are pretty impressive that they're loading in. And there's another one that's like, you're driving through like, raging waters, and there's like ship battles and everything happening. So like these are intricate levels that they're loading in at a pretty rapid rate. It almost reminds me of Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, the way it just loads these levels in like rapidly. And
are they not based on like Sonic levels?
Yeah, a lot of them are.
Okay.
So I just don't have any like, I mean, I guess somewhere I had a list that Sega gave me of like, hey, here's the levels that like we have announced. And there's different classes. So like there's handling, boost, acceleration, power, and speed. So like Knuckles is power, Tails is acceleration, Amy is handling, and I'll give you 5 guesses what Sonic is. And I played as Jet as well, which if you played Sonic Riders, he's like the Hawk from that. And he uses the extreme gear, which is like kind of like the hoverboard from Sonic Riders, which is cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I will say that the classes do feel very distinct from one another. Like I was playing as like Knuckles and Sonic and Jet, and I was like, okay, these all feel different. And then I played Amy, who is handling focused, and I was like, oh my God, this is very noticeable that she has like much better handling than these other characters. So that was cool. As you race, you get Donpa tickets, and that helps you with customization. So there's gadget plates that you can customize, and you select a gadget plate, which is basically like a loadout that you can customize. So like there was one that was like, okay, well, when you start the race, you have 3 items that you can hold instead of just 2. Or like when you get like a green rocket, which is basically like their version of like the green shell, you can get like, it's bigger, and so it takes up more space. So you're more likely to hit like multiple people or even just one person. So there's all these different things. And then there's also like, this is going to like make your speed better. This is going to make your handling better. So like there's ways you can tweak your loadout to be more in line with what you're wanting. And you can purchase those modules through the Donpa tickets. And then you can also customize your vehicle like extremely, like to an extreme degree. So there's front, back, and wheels, and those all like affect your stats. And then there's like cosmetic stuff like paint jobs, decals, the aura around your character when like they're boosting, and then you can choose a different horn, and you can also upgrade your characters, so it's very very customizable. And then there's
Can
also
I
like, yeah, go
on the
for it.
topic of customization, can I put stickers on my car?
Yes, there are decals that you can choose,
Oh, okay, cool,
which
cool,
is,
cool.
yeah, so there's all kinds of customization. They showed me like you can get in the weeds with the customization. Like I put like a, because Knuckles, his signature thing is Pumpkin Hill, so I put a pumpkin on like the hood of his car, and just
Nice.
kind of messing around like that. And also like every once in a while, like when those gates appear for the CrossWorlds teleportation, sometimes they have a gold ring around or a gold like emblem above it, and that means that they're a frenzy. And when you go in there, it's like just like chaos. So like there's one where it's like boost gates are everywhere. So as long as you stay within those
Mm,
gates, you are going full speed boosting. And then there's another one where it's like just you get unlimited green rockets. So you're just blasting people constantly as you go through that lap. So those are just like special variants that you can get. And then during Summer Game Fest, they also revealed that there are several crossover characters that I did not see in the build that I played. So there's Joker from Persona 5, Ichiban Kasuga from Like a Dragon, Hatsune Miku, and then Steve from Minecraft. And I believe the Creeper might also be in it, which is
yeah, I think so.
interesting. So lots of crossover
There's
characters with more to come.
Yeah, if there's like a Tokyo level, I will buy this game. It's
Oh
that
my
simple. I
gosh.
will play as Joker, and I will play through a personified Tokyo. Then they've got me, which is the whole point of crossovers. Uh, yeah, this is cool. It's cool they're doing crossovers. It's funny they're doing what I thought the next Mario Kart would be. I thought Mario Kart was going to go the Smash Bros route and just bring in the whole Nintendo franchise, but they didn't. So it's funny that Sega has landed on the idea I've always had for Mario Kart. And even funnier that Mario Kart World, which we'll talk a little bit about soon, I think, drops some of the customization from previous Mario Karts, whereas Sonic seems to be diving deeper into that customization. Which, in my opinion, for people that really like kart racers, is the smarter move. It's cool being able to customize that kind of stuff intricately and make a cart feel like yours. So it's cool that this isn't just a Mario Kart clone. It's like actively trying to do its own thing.
It's also interesting to me on that point that Nintendo has really been leaning into like the Mario movie kind of aesthetic, right? Like they redesigned Donkey Kong to look kind of like the Mario movie. They released Mario versus Donkey Kong and a Princess Peach game right on the heels of the Mario movie to kind of capitalize on like the spotlight that those characters had. Now they're doing a Donkey Kong 3D game with Donkey Kong looking like he did in the Mario movie. Remember a key scene in the Mario movie was them customizing their Mario Kart. So I'm wondering why they dialed back on the customization a little bit. I mean, you can still customize to an extent, but they dialed back a decent amount after they made a big deal about that in the Mario movie. So that's kind of interesting that you pointed that out.
Yeah, I never thought about that. They do. That's like a whole 20-minute chunk of the movie is that
Yeah.
Mario Kart
So
section.
uh Takashi Iizuka, the head of Sonic Team, also came out and threw a little shade at Mario Kart. He was like, unlike that other kart racing game this year, we have cross-platform play. And I'm like, well, first of all, there's no other platform for Mario Kart World, so that makes sense they wouldn't have cross-platform play. But also, it's kind of fun to see like Sega throwing shade at Nintendo and Mario once again.
Yeah, I like it. They need to be Mario and Sonic need to beef again. I'm tired of them buddying up for the Olympics. Like they need to fight.
Hey, when I interviewed Tom Kalinske, he was very distraught that Mario and Sonic are buddies now.
Yeah, I mean to be fair, like God, if you're a Sonic fan, you have had a really great past few years. Probably the past 5 years have been amazing. Whereas if you're a Mario fan, It's been great, but not as great as Sonic has. Sonic people are they're getting you guys are getting new games, 3 really good movies, TV show that isn't
They
the
get better
greatest,
with
but
each one.
still, yeah. And they're making another Sonic movie. Like they're not. It's yeah, it's a good time to be a Sonic fan. I'll say, as someone
It
from the
is.
outside looking in, very jealous of the Sonic franchise.
So Sonic Racing CrossWorlds comes to Switch and Switch 2 and every other major platform on September 25th. That was the other big piece of news. We got a release date. So Wes, I have one more game that's not actually even coming to Switch, at least not yet. But you have one other that you wanted to talk about before we jump into that.
Yeah, so Devolver Digital every year does a Devolver Direct, and it's crazy. It's zany. There's usually violence and blood and gore and lots of weird stuff. This year, Devolver did something different. They just released a documentary about a developer, Kenny Sun, and they're behind the one game that Devolver's Direct this year showcased, which is called Ball X Pit. I think it's just Ball Pit, but it's Ball space lowercase x space Pit. It is let me make sure I get this right, a brick breaking, roguelite, survival, base building game. Uh, Gorgeous pixel art style. The main premise of the game is you go on runs, and it's a brick breaking run. So your character's advancing forward, enemies are coming down at you from the screen, and you're firing off orbs and weapons and all kind of stuff to take down enemies. And as they die, you pick up experience. You continue to level up nonstop. It doesn't end. Like the run just keeps going. You quickly level up, your stats go up, and then you pick like a perk, like, oh, I want this weapon to be stronger, or I want this weapon added to my arsenal. And boom, you're right back in, waves of enemies coming down, and you're just brick breaking, like a classic, not a classic brick breaking game. You're not just the little platform, you're a character that you can move anywhere you want in the space. You're not just confined to left and right. You can move up, down, all around. It's really awesome. It's really, really fun. I can tell it's going to be the next big indie hit from that regard, but that's only like half the game. You take what you've earned and the resources and the money you get from those brick breaking runs, and you bring it back to your post-apocalyptic base where you can grow crops or create forestry.
Wait,
And
what?
then you have to harvest. Yeah. So then you have to harvest the crops, which is really cool. So you hit harvest, you aim your character, and then like brick breaking, it shoots off into this compound of crops. And you have to make sure your character, which becomes a ball, rolls through the crop in a brick breaking manner in order to get those resources. It's really cool. The whole premise is built around brick breaking, but there's the base building, there's the survival, there's each run is a roguelite run. And the demo I played on Steam Next Fest is a small tease of what I'm sure is going to be a lot more game. Devolver, I mean, they're the marketing company, the publisher, so of course they're going to say a bunch of nice things, but they say like people at the company have been putting hundreds of hours into this game, and I can see why. It has like the in your face nonstop dopamine hit of like Vampire Survivors, and that there's numbers all over the screen, there's enemies everywhere, you're constantly just break breaking. But then it also has the base building that people love, and it also has the cool world and a great soundtrack and the roguelite premise, which roguelite is just a endlessly fun loop. And I think this game is going to be really special, and I think Devolver knows that too. Otherwise, why devote an entire direct to just this one game with a fancy documentary? Very
Yeah,
excited for Ball Pit. I think everyone needs to try it out. I'm telling you here, it will be. We don't know when it's coming out. It's to be announced soon, so maybe this year, maybe not. It's going to be the indie hit, like the Vampire Survivors, like the Balatro of those years. Like I can tell, I feel it. It's going to be a big hit.
I'm looking at the trailer right now, and it looks incredible.
Yeah.
Man, I'm going to download this demo on Steam Next Fest and give it a shot.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a game that will eat up a lot of time on my Switch 2 when it comes out, which unfortunately we don't have a release date for.
No, but we do know for sure that's coming to Switch, presumably Switch 2. Well, I mean, backwards compatible nonetheless, which is great because this is a perfect Switch game.
Yeah, so definitely keep your eyes open on that. And, you know, if it's anything like Vampire Survivors and Balatro, my listeners will be tired of me talking about it. So that is something that everybody has a chance to look forward to. But yeah, Ball X Pit. Who knows how it's pronounced? But yeah, that looks super good. Thanks for bringing me that one, because I would have completely missed that. I love Devolver. Devolver does a
A lot of
fantastic job. I did
people,
a feature on
yeah,
Devolver.
you did, yeah, it's a
So
great feature. A lot
I
of
did a feature on Devolver, and they do such a great job of finding this talent and curating it, and they they have such an eye for the games. Like it dates all the way back to like Hotline Miami, and
yeah.
it's like, oh yeah, they knew they were onto something with that one, right? And it just has only continued. Like they not every game that they put out is a hit, but like they have a track record at this point, and like they understand what a hit indie game is, and they've
Hmm.
demonstrated that over and over again.
Yeah, not every game they put out's a hit, but I do think 99% of the time, every game they put out is good. Whether or not it gains
Hmm.
the traction to be like the big indie of the year, that's has a lot of factors. But like they are probably some of the most prominent and consistent tastemakers in the publishing indie space, which is why I'm like, it took 5 minutes of ball pit for me to be like, yeah, this is it. This is going to be their Devolver is going to be very happy with this game.
I got to reach out to Devolver and see what we can do with that, because
Yeah,
there's a lot of excitement that I have for this game now. So
yeah,
thanks,
check it
Wes.
out.
Now I have another game to circle on my calendar once they announce a release date.
Yeah.
But all right, well, the last game that I want to bring up on this segment before we devote the final segment to Mario Kart World is Invincible Versus. And again, not coming to Switch 2 just yet, but I would be surprised if they don't announce it down the road. But it's a combo-driven fighting game. It's it's 3v3, or no, yeah, 3v3, and set in the Invincible universe. It looks like it's primarily based on the Amazon Prime streaming show, which I am in love with. I love that show so much. And I had 4 characters that I could play as. I could play as Invincible, Bulletproof, Adam Eve, and Thula. And each of those characters controls a little bit different. Invincible is kind of like a rushdown character, where he's just best when he's in your face. Bulletproof is kind of like a technical, like kind of like delivering like high-low combos, where like mixing up, making it difficult to block. Adam Eve is like the range character with all of her like kind of like projections that she can do. And then Thula is kind of like the mid-range character. She has like a blade on the end of her hair that she can whip around, and it's really, really effective. Like that was the character that gave me the most trouble when I was playing. And it's done by a lot of the developers that did 2013's Killer Instinct. They were, after they did the first season of content for Killer Instinct back on Xbox One, they were purchased by Amazon and then merged into Amazon Games. This is a fully new studio owned by Skybound. This is Skybound's first gaming studio underneath their umbrella. And a lot of the people have come from other big studios, but like it seems like a lot of the leadership and a lot of people on this this project in particular are from Double Helix, the studio that did 2013's Killer Instinct. So that is one that I am very much looking forward to. Again, not announced for Switch 2 just yet, but it seems like a great fit for it, and it's set to come out in 2026. Wes, have any interest in that one? Are you an Invincible guy at all?
I am. I loved the first season. I still need to watch season 2 and 3.
They're
I might have
amazing.
even talked about it here before. The way they released season 2 kind of rubbed me wrong. It's really
Yeah.
annoying how companies do these giant breaks. Nonetheless, it kind of put me off on watching it because I was like, I'll just watch it when it's done, and then I never did. But I loved Invincible season 1. I love what I've read of the comics. Yeah, I'm definitely going to check this out. What a time to be alive if you're a fighting fan. You have the classics, the Street Fighters, the Mortal Kombats, the Tekkens. You've got this game. You have the Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls, the uh
Yeah.
that what's the name?
Arc System
Arc
Works.
System Works. And hopefully that comes to Switch, because I think that would be great
I mean,
there.
it's being
Um
published by PlayStation, right?
yeah, it is actually. So probably, well, it might come to Switch. Maybe probably not
I
though,
mean,
but I think
I would have loved to talk about Marvel Tokon, which is the Arc System Works Marvel fighting game. It's a 4v4 Marvel fighting game. We'll just mention it briefly. And it looks terrific. It's from the
yeah,
God, what is the
Guilty Gear.
franchise that they do? Guilty Gear. Yeah, so like one of the most
Yeah.
technically sound fighting games ever. And if you were watching the video version, you can see the Marvel vs. Capcom 2 cabinet that I have behind me, I have long yearned for just give me Marvel vs. Capcom, but without the Capcom characters. And this seems
And now
like
you're
it's
getting
like,
it.
okay, well, we're going to give you Guilty Gear with Marvel characters. And I'm
And
all
it's
for
like
that. We saw,
Japanese anime aesthetic Marvel characters too, which is super cool.
yeah, and it was very funny. I noticed this too when like they were showing the trailer, which is 100% in Japanese. It was very funny to see Captain America come on speaking Japanese.
Yeah, yeah, very Captain America.
Uh,
And then also the other fighting game is Riot's 2KXO. So
oh right,
like,
2XKO.
yeah, there's no shortage of fighting games coming out, which could be a problem because the fighting game community is not like the biggest, and that's a lot of silos. But man, if you're a fighting game fan, I mean, like you probably have an IP out there that's getting a fighting game devoted to it, which is awesome.
Yeah, so on top of all that, you also have the Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection. You have the Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Collection that Digital Eclipse also did several years ago. But yeah, a lot of excitement around the fighting genre. Wes, we are going to take our final break of this episode, and when we get back, we're going to share some impressions on Mario Kart World. We will be right back. We are back, and I want to close out this very jam-packed episode by talking a little bit more about Mario Kart World. Wes, we have been with our Switch 2s for just about a week now, and there's so many games that we want to talk about. Maybe we'll do like a little bit of a rapid-fire shout-out at the end of this, but I want to close out by talking specifically about Mario Kart World. How much time have you put into this game so far?
Not as much as I'd like, probably a couple hours max, because I have been playing pretty much all the other Switch 2 games for work reasons. So Mario Kart was on the back burner, but I've been really diving in lately, and no surprise, having a really great time.
Mm-hmm. So my biggest takeaways, like, so there's this Grand Prix, there's Knockout Tour mode, there's free roam, which is something completely new to the Mario Kart franchise, and that's kind of been the big selling point. My big takeaways are that one, free roam is a little bit underwhelming. That's the only negative that I have. Still fun, but just a little empty. Two, the courses themselves are perhaps the best courses we've ever had in Mario Kart. And three, the music is maybe my favorite soundtrack of the year.
Yeah, it's nuts how good it is.
Like there's times where like the game just fires up and it's kind of like on like the attract screen of whatever character you were like cruising around the big open world, and it's just playing like a random song from Mario's past but completely rearranged in a way. And there was a time, I posted about this on Blue Sky actually, where I was like, I got a little emotional listening to like a reimagining of the Steam Gardens song, which is one of the best Mario songs of all time. It's from Mario Odyssey. And it was just like Waluigi cruising around like the desert, and there's like a kind of a sunset, and the Steam Gardens rearrangement was playing, and I was like, oh my God, this is like making me feel something right in my chest here.
Yeah.
And I mean, there was a similar time for like just really any of the classic rearrangements are so they almost have a sentimental feel to them, and it's appropriate for kind of like the more laid back pace that you're meant to take these free roam sessions as. Like, when you're racing through Mario Kart and it's on a course that's supposed to be like frantic and like things are flying at you, there's stuff happening in the free roam as well, but really it's like about exploration. It's about just kind of cruising down the road, discovering stuff, and they very aptly capture that in the way that they've composed these songs.
I agree. I feel like there's like 800 songs in this game. I don't even know if I've heard a repeat song yet. And I haven't played enough to hear repeats, but like I think we're in the similar mind of like perhaps more impressive than anything else in the game is the music. Like it is just so good. And the bar was so high after Mario Kart 8 because that soundtrack is incredible and the fact that they eclipsed it in my opinion is uh yeah, the music is a 12 out of 10, like for sure.
Yeah, and
Um
it
oh,
keeps me wanting to go around the free roam just because I want to hear more songs.
yeah, and on the free roam, I'm curious because and I think you have more experience with like the Forza Horizon series, which kind of everyone is saying is like the king of open world free roaming and racing. What what is Forza Horizon and other good open world racers doing that like Mario Kart isn't, or that like Mario Kart feels empty by comparison, as someone who's not as familiar?
I think it's just having a breadth of events that you can achieve. And like when you're going around, it's not just okay, here's like a P switch that's going to give you stuff. It is actually like rewarding activities, and you can just jump into a race at any time, and like you'll be driving around and be like, oh, there's a race right here that you can do, or there's like a long jump that you can do. And the P switches are cool, but like as Matt Miller, our editor in chief at Game Informer, points out in his review on GameInformer.com, all of the stuff that you get from completing the free roam stuff is underwhelming. It's usually just like a sticker for like the side of your Mario Kart, and it's like that's
Basically useless.
yeah, minimal interest to me. The only thing I am interested in is the new costumes,
Yeah,
which I'm enjoying finding those, but it's also it feels kind of random. It
it
doesn't feel
does.
like there's any kind of like defined way to get those costumes. I think that it's like it's based on what cuisine your character eats, which I guess some cuisines are more prominent in certain areas of the world. So like you have to explore like, you know, if you want mariachi Waluigi, which I very much wanted mariachi Waluigi, I had to explore like kind of like the desert area, and I, you know, got him and I was happy. And then like some of the characters don't have very many costumes, which is disappointing. But
Donkey Kong
yeah,
has one.
what was that?
I think Donkey Kong has just one,
I think
which a
Paulina
lot
only
of
has one as well.
yeah, dang, they're slighting Donkey Kong. Crazy.
But meanwhile, like Waluigi has a ton. I have mariachi Waluigi, I have vampire Waluigi, like I have all kinds of costumes for him. But like I'm just trying to like find as many costumes as I can, and I complete the P switch challenges when I'm out there. But it's just like I complete it and I'm like, cool. What did I get from that? And it's like,
Yeah,
you got a sticker that you can put on the side, and it's like, all right, I found 2 stickers so far that like I wanted to swap out for. Otherwise, I'm fine with just like keeping it as is. The the coins I don't think really have done anything for me. Those are like there's like challenge coins around. Um, yeah, and I mean, it just doesn't feel like there's any reward for exploring the open world outside of just like the sense of completionist or completionism. It it doesn't really give me like a reason to explore outside of there are things. It doesn't like open up any kind of like. And I mean, I don't know if I'd want them to really lock a ton behind like the open world stuff. Like they lock the characters behind completing like the Grand Prix and everything, but like do I really want to have to explore the open world? If I'm a Mario Kart player, am I going to want to like explore like every inch of the world to find a character? I don't think so. So they were kind of
yeah.
hamstrung by the fact that like they want to make it so you can earn the normal Mario Kart rewards through normal Mario Kart play, but like that also inhibits their ability to make cool rewarding experiences out in the free roam, right? Because
Yeah,
they don't want players to have to like explore that area just to unlock stuff, and that's
it's
frustrating.
yeah, it's tough because like in Mario Odyssey, for example, you do. I have like one of my best friends got every single moon in the game, which is like hundreds and hundreds, and for the most part, you just do like a cool platforming challenge to get the moon, and that's it. You can unlock the outfits and stuff, but like the act of getting to the moon is what makes the moon so exciting. And like it's interesting that they weren't able to find that juice with Mario Kart, where like I don't know if the rewards necessarily need to be all that amazing, but like the act of getting the reward needs to be amazing. And it seems like they haven't really nailed that. As someone who hasn't put much time into free roam, like it feels like that's the part of the Mario formula that we love that's missing, is like the act of trying to get these rewards is not good enough to make up for whatever the reward is.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, and
which
it's
I still need to put more time into the open realm, but yeah, I haven't messed with it too much just because I've heard basically everything you're describing.
it like you said, like if you're going to do like challenges and like encourage exploration, it either needs to have kind of like the Breath of the Wild approach, is what made me fell in love with Breath of the Wild in the first place, is like if you see a ledge or you see like a cliff that you can climb and you climb it, 9 times out of 10 you're going to see something really cool up there. Even if you're not finding like the best weapon, or you're not like finding like a really cool piece of gear, there's going to be something cool to see up there, whether it's an Easter
Yeah.
egg to like a past Zelda game, or like just a really cool view, or like a new secret area that you never knew existed. That type of stuff makes it worth it, even if it's not the best reward. Conversely, you could just make it so like, all right, the exploration isn't the best, but if you explore, you'll find really awesome rewards, and it'll make
Yeah.
it so it's worthwhile. Mario Kart World, from what I can tell, has very little of either.
Yeah.
And I don't think that it's a bad like free roam, like a bad component of this game, but I just don't think it has, like you said, like that secret sauce, that
Hmm.
juice that like other Nintendo games like Odyssey and like Breath of the Wild have excelled at in like their encouraging of exploration.
Yeah. Maybe they put too much time and juice into Knockout Tour, which inversely is incredible and probably it needs to be a mainstay for the series. That's where I've spent most of my time, is Knockout Tour, because it is just so dang good.
Really, the rest of the package is fantastic. I don't want like people to think that like
Yeah.
I am bashing Mario Kart World, because it is far and away my favorite title on the Switch 2 right now. Like I love Street Fighter 6, I love Cyberpunk, I love Yakuza 0. Yakuza 0 is easily my favorite Yakuza game. I paused there for a second so I could like verify my. I do like a Dragon a lot, but it's a kind of a different beast. But Yakuza
Yeah.
0 is easily my favorite Yakuza game, so I'm stoked that that's on Switch finally. But Mario Kart World is far and away the game that like I'll check out other games and then I will end my night by playing a couple hours of Mario Kart World. And I'm playing it so far. I've played it 100% single player outside of the Switch 2 reveal event where I played Knockout Tour and a couple races multiplayer. I I'm having a like maybe more fun in single player than I've ever had in a Mario Kart game. Like everybody knows the
Oh yeah.
multiplayer in Mario Kart is
Yeah.
phenomenal, and I'm sure that's the case with this one. And you seem to be indicating as much, but I think that the single player has been really rounded out by the free roamer experience, whether it's lackluster, underwhelming, or whatever. It's still fun. It's still like something that I would play a couple races and then go around in free roam and like try to find some cool secrets, which there are some cool secrets. It's not completely like barren and it's not completely unengaging. It's just not what the level that we've come to expect from other Nintendo first party titles in their open worlds. And this is their first attempt at doing a world like this in Mario Kart. So that's understandable, but
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that we give it an instant pass for that. Um, so I've been doing that, but like the courses, there's one that is like, I mean, one, first of all, let's just get this out of the way right here. Rainbow Road is the best Rainbow Road that's ever existed.
I haven't gotten to it yet, so don't spoil too
I'm
much
not
about it.
spoiling
But
anything, but I'll talk about another course then, which I don't remember what it's called, but it's the one with like a bunch of booze. It's like one of the haunted
I
house
just played
levels.
it before this. I don't remember what it's called either.
It reminds me of like if they ever do a haunted house ride at Super Nintendo World, that is the blueprint right there. It feels
Yeah.
like a Disney roller coaster in like all the setting, everything, like the music, the way the music like complements the experience so much. The music is so dynamic. I was playing that, like those are the two courses that gave me just, I couldn't resist having a giant smile across my face, was when I was
Yeah.
playing the Haunted Mansion level and playing Rainbow Road. I was like, these are two of the greatest Mario Kart levels to ever exist, are these versions. And it doles it out in such a way that it feels like an amusement park ride. I know I already made that metaphor there, but it really is an amusement park ride, the way that you drive through those levels, and the music, just the complementing of all of the senses just coalesces into something that truly feels special. And I, I always questioned what would come after Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, because it just felt like that was the ultimate peak that they could never top. And the answer is just it turns out it's not the free roam. That's not the answer that, at least yet in its current form, that's not the answer that's going to top Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. It is just having some of the most supremely well-designed courses that any racing game has ever seen, let alone just in the Mario Kart series.
Yeah. And there's so much wider too in how you approach it. That's what something I'm finding. My main takeaway with Mario Kart World is it is far and away the hardest Mario Kart to me. I play on 150cc and I like don't often do not get first place, which is fun because it's like challenging. And it's because there's so much happening in these levels. It's not just everyone's going straight. We're drifting, flying sometimes through the boost rings. Now you have like so many more shortcuts. I'm seeing new shortcuts every time I play a track. There's the new tech of holding your charge jump, which I've seen some crazy things online of people doing. There's using that to ramp off of cars on the highway or get on rails, which speeds you up greatly. There's so many ways to tackle each of these new tracks that like I'm still learning how to play this game, and it's really awesome. I like that I'm getting my butt kicked and it's forcing me to like use all the mechanics and figure out how can I use this charge jump to my ability? How can I use drifting to my ability? The new handling, the new items. Yeah, like you said, it's not the open world that they needed to like figure out. It's not the open world that beats Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. It's the doubling down on what they've done so well, which is creating these courses that are just a blast to race through. My only, this isn't even really a hiccup. It's just something I'm getting used to. The Grand Prix setup is still kind of confusing to me because like you're only doing like one lap on the named course and then you're traveling in between. I'm not sure. It like kind of throws me off. I'm like, oh, I like this course, but I've only done one lap and now we're done with it. I'm not sure how I feel about that yet. I like the way it's integrated into the wider world, but I'm like, oh, I want to do 3 laps on this course, please.
Well, you can do that, right? If you go out into, but not in Grand Prix. You can just go out into like custom races and do that. Yeah, I can see that, but I do think that it also adds to like the feeling of excitement when you finally get onto the named course. You're just driving, and they've done a good job of like weaving it. So like just because you're in between the tracks doesn't mean it's boring now, right? Like it feels like a race course still, but then you get onto the main track and you're like, oh my God, this suddenly felt like it built up to this moment.
Yeah, and it's still themed too. Like I did the second cup before this. I was just playing around in it, and like the second level is like a sherbet level, and then you're like in the open world, but it's still like there's ice cream stands and there's shops selling ice cream. Like it's all very themed around that still. So it's not like you're losing that Disney World-esque theming you mentioned in between the named courses. It's just like throwing me for a loop because I'm like, oh, okay, I forgot this is how Grand Prix work now. But it's an interesting change for sure.
Yeah, it's just a massive game too. Like the number of courses when you count like the way that Grand Prix is, the named courses in the cups themselves, like there's so much going on, and it's just impressive the level of content that they've delivered in this game. And that's even like ignoring the free roam and like all the challenges in there. But like the challenges themselves are fun for the most part. There's a few where I've just been like, that's stupid. Well, I'm not going to come back and try that again. I mean, maybe eventually I will if I decide to 100% this game, because like if history has shown us anything, we will be with this Mario Kart for quite some time.
For the next generation, or for this generation, maybe the next generation as well.
I hope not. I really hope we don't get Mario Kart World Deluxe on Switch 3. That would drive me up a wall.
They should not do that. I think that 8 definitely ran its course by the end. I wasn't even really interested halfway through the Switch 1 generation anymore, even with the booster course, because like I just wanted new, and now I have it, and I will be playing this for the entire Switch 2 generation, I think.
Well, they did say that the reason that they pushed this to Switch 2 was they tried to do the free roam, and it ended up not being achievable on Switch 1 without like dramatically reducing the resolution or the frame rate. So that's why they were like, all right, let's do the booster course pass just to give a little bit of Mario Kart content to 8 Deluxe, and then we'll push this to be a Switch 2 launch title. And
Yeah, they started development on. There was a big. We actually have a bunch of features on Game Informer about. I kind of broke down the big hits out of this big 4-part interview series they did, and one of them was like how they started this game on Switch 1 in 2020, and then moved to Switch 2 for the reasons you mentioned. But even that itself kind of blew my mind that they didn't start making a new Mario Kart till 2020. So they really did coast on 8 for what, 8 years, I think. And it took them 8 years to be like, we're going to start
or
on something new.
6 years, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think it was 2014.
But yeah, that was still surprising. And you mentioned how many tracks there were earlier. Nintendo says if you count all the Grand Prix, all the variations and all that, there's over 200 tracks in the game.
And I mean, there's something like that in the music too. They said there's like over 100 tracks, like musical tracks, not race tracks. And I can't wait to hear more of them. Like I've seen a lot of people share this sentiment. So this is not an original thought, but I'm very disappointed that we don't have Mario Kart World soundtrack in the Nintendo Music app. Like that. God, that's the thing that would make me listen on the Nintendo Music app.
Same. It's why not? Like, I know it's going to come one day, but like, why are you not dropping it alongside the game? It's the hype is. We're never going to be more excited about the soundtrack than we are right now. If you want people to get into that app, now is the time to drop it, not 2 years from now on a random Sunday night at 10 p.m. Yeah, it's frustrating because like we just got Tears of the Kingdom, right? I think last week, maybe
something like that.
It's been why? Now I can listen to that amazing arrangement at the end of the game, but like, come on, I wanted that earlier.
Yeah, it is frustrating the way they're doing that. But yeah, Mario Kart World, very good Switch 2 launch game. It's not, perfect by any stretch, but it is one of the better Mario Kart games for sure. I'm not quite sure where I would rank it. We might at some point in the future do a definitive ranking of like where would we slot Mario Kart World into the greater Mario Kart rankings, or maybe we'll just do it as a tier list because those are always fun.
That would be funny because it's like it's really just 8 versus World. Wii's pretty good, and the 3DS one was pretty good, and then there's
Double
just
Dash.
a big Double Dash is there, and then a huge drop off because like you can't even compare what we're playing now to like the Super Nintendo versions, or I was playing the Game Boy version or Game Boy Advance version with Nintendo Switch Online recently, and it made me sick. Like it's not playable anymore.
It's rough. It really is. But yeah, any closing thoughts on Mario Kart World?
No, it's great. It's hard, and I'm looking forward to playing even more of it. It's also beautiful. We didn't really touch on that, but like it's a gorgeous, gorgeous game, especially on Switch 2, looking 4K and 60 FPS with HDR. Now it's what a dream. What a dream.
And also, I think that there's probably going to be some post-launch content for it. I'm hoping. Like, it seems like a perfect platform to expand upon. Like, hey, there's a whole new cup and a whole new world that you can explore now. That seems like it would be a match made in heaven. But I also thought that about Mario Odyssey. So, who knows what's going to happen?
They have the potential to like address the open world problems too by like adding stuff, which I think would be very smart and cool to do.
Absolutely. Wes, we've already gone very long in this episode. So do you have a game or two that you want to shout out that you've been playing on Switch 2 that is good? I will start with, I actually checked this out. It's the other racing game on Switch 2. It is called Fast Fusion. And it is very much in the vein of like F-Zero and Wipeout, if you played that game back in like the early PlayStation days. And it's just a futuristic racer. You go in courses around like the real world. Like there's one that's like the Redwood Forest. There's others that are like, in Latin America. So like all over the world. And it's very futuristic, and you can jump and you can, so you can jump and you can make it so that you're jumping up to like other courses. So like you can branch off your paths. You can do all kinds of stuff with it. There's boost tokens that you find. And what those do is they allow you to refill your boost gauge. And then the core mechanic there is the phase shift. So each vehicle has 2 phases, and as you're cruising, and like you'll see like a blue boost pad, you have to shift over to the blue phase of your car. So you just press a button real quick. So it becomes kind of like if you're jumping between two different boost phases, there's like almost a rhythm to swapping between them.
Ooh,
So
that's
like
cool.
you're like, all right, well, there's a blue pad. I need to switch to the blue phase, and then immediately into an orange pad. So I need to switch to the orange phase. So I really appreciate that aspect of it. It doesn't have like the depth that you've come to expect from like a Mario Kart World or a like a Forza Horizon 5, which we talked about earlier. It's more straightforward than any other like racing game that you would expect in like the modern landscape. So it is kind of classic in that regard. But yeah, like I'm enjoying like going through the different courses. There's apparently like a robust customization system. Also, it looks fantastic in
Yeah.
4K 60 frames per second because it's a very fast pace. It's much faster paced than Mario Kart is. Yeah, I mean, I don't anticipate I'll put as much time into it as I have with Mario Kart World, but it's definitely up there in terms of like the games that I'm enjoying. Pokemon Scarlet Violet, we've already talked about that. Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, massive upgrades in terms of the performance.
It's transformational for me with Breath of the Kingdom, Tears of the Kingdom, and Breath of the Wild. I did not think it would be that big of a deal, and it is. And it's like it's such a big deal that I'm actually like kind of frustrated because I don't have it in me to replay them right now, and I just wish I never played them. I wish I never played them because people who are playing these games for the first time now are getting a much better experience. Not the way we played it was bad, but like 60 FPS is that it's that good.
Mm-hmm.
Also on Fast Fusion, you mentioned it's not like as deep as Mario Kart. It is important to recognize that it is a $15 game.
Yeah.
So like it feels and looks like a 15 or it has the content of a $15 game versus Mario Kart's extraordinary $80 price tag.
Yes. And also, it's worth noting that this is the studio behind Fast RMX, and then what was the Wii U one? Fast Racing Neo. That was the Wii U version. So Fast Racer Neo, and then the Switch launch title was Fast RMX. This is the sequel to those games. So if you played either of those titles, then you know what to expect.
Yeah. For my quick hits, I'll do a very fast hit for Hitman World of Assassination trilogy. 3 fantastic immersive sim assassination games. They do look a good bit better on other platforms, but having these games on the go is going to be a really good time. Definitely check those out. My 2 main games I want to highlight: Cyberpunk 2077 Ultimate Edition. It is a feat of wizardry that this runs on the Switch 2, and that it does so competently and consistently. Like, given the history of that game, the fact that it's running stable on Switch 2 is amazing. And it's not even like big caveats. The world is a lot emptier. There's not many cars on the road. But if you can get past that, the game still looks gorgeous. And it's a gorgeous game. Of note, you can take your save with Cyberpunk 2077 from any console and move it back and forth between any console. So I was able to boot up my Xbox save on my PC, and I was able to take that save from PC to Switch 2. And now that Switch 2 save is updated on all my other platforms. I think that cannot be overstated how cool that is and how gaming should be moving forward.
Yeah, why don't more developers do that? Like, I'm sure there's hurdles that like the platform holders put in place because they don't want you to jump to another platform. But like that seems like the way that all games should be.
Yeah, especially like 5 years later, your game's been out this long, it's on a new platform. Like, I have saves with hundreds of hours in it. Like, I don't want to necessarily start brand new on Switch 2. It's cool that I can take my save on the go, which is like the whole promise of Switch 2. Cyberpunk 2077, really cool. It also has some Switch 2 specific handling. Like, you can use your Joy-Con like motion controls, whatever. It's kind of gimmicky, but it's cool to try out. And then you can use mouse control, and it works really well, which is awesome. The number one game I'd recommend on Switch 2, though, is Bravely Default Flying Fairy HD Remaster. The name's a mouthful and kind of silly, but this is a JRPG I loved on 3DS, and it is looking and running and playing better than ever on Switch 2. It is a classic JRPG. There are 4 crystals. There is a classic gang of heroes, all very tropey. they got to save the world, and it just feels very homey, and it's very nice to play something like that on Switch too. Fantastic RPG that I think you should check out if you have any interest in like where this series, like where this type of game began. Like if you like the classic Final Fantasies, if you like Dragon Quest, like Bravely Default is one of those, and it feels really good to play in 2025. And it's a remaster, so it has new content, mostly optional, and it looks gorgeous on Switch too. It's probably going to be the first game I beat on Switch 2 outside of like Mario Kart.
Wow.
If you can beat that.
High praise. Well, there is a way to roll credits on Mario Kart World. I can confirm that.
Okay, cool.
You could probably guess what it is.
Yeah. Rainbows.
Yeah, there's some rainbows involved. But Wes, as we close out this episode, what is your most anticipated Switch 2 game?
Gosh. Other than the 60 FPS patch coming to Astral Chain one day, because I'm going to will it into existence. That's tough. Like a game I know right now, probably Donkey Kong, even though I'm kind of like cautiously not sure about it. I'm just excited for like something new, like brand new on Switch 2. Yeah, I'll say Donkey Kong. I haven't played a Metroid Prime, so I'm not like rearing to play 4. Beyond that, I'm kind of just looking forward to like the unannounced games. What is the next Pokemon? What's the next? I mean, Pokemon is up there. Like that's Generation 10. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about Gen 10. I forgot about ZA. Whatever the 10th gen of Pokemon is, I'm very excited for because it's got to be big. But I forgot about ZA. ZA is probably my most actually the most anticipated this year. I didn't play Arceus.
Oh, you should.
I know. I need to go back and do it.
I wonder if it runs better. I wonder if it runs better on Switch 2, because if it does, then that's one of the killer apps right there. Pokemon
I think it's
Scarlet
more stable. I think it's more stable, but it's not like 60 FPS or anything, unfortunately.
I mean, I don't need it to be necessarily 60 FPS, but like just a little bit better. It wasn't nearly as bad as Scarlet and Violet was when it came out.
Yeah.
So just little boosts here and there is all that game needs. It's really Scarlet and Violet was the one that needed the upgrade, and it more than got it. It really is almost a new game at this point, and I'm enjoying it a lot. I'm replaying it right now.
Nice. What's your most anticipated?
Probably Legend ZA. I loved Arceus so much that like I want to see where they take that like sub series next.
I'm excited to see if Nintendo has a, funny enough, Cyberpunk 2077 situation on their hands, where presumably if you're reviewing that for us, you're going to do it on your Switch too. And maybe it runs like a dream and it's stable and nice. And then people playing on Switch are like chugging, like it's not working well. And then we have like a tale of two reviews type situation. I'm excited to see how they tackle that.
I would not be surprised if that's the case for Metroid Prime as well, because what I played on the Switch 2 at the Switch 2 reveal, very visually impressive. Like it was easily the most gorgeous Nintendo game I've ever played in my life.
Wow.
It was jaw-droppingly good looking.
Okay. That just shot up real high on my list. I guess I need to go play Remastered first.
Play Remastered. It's terrific. But yeah, Metroid Prime 4 looks incredible. It plays incredible. But Legend ZA is my pick. Yeah. But
what starter are you going with? Totodile, right?
Probably, actually.
Okay, good.
Maybe, I mean, Cyndaquil's another one, right?
No, Cyndaquil was an Arceus. Tepig. Yeah.
Tepig. What's the other?
It's the
Chikorita.
It's Chikorita. Yeah.
Yeah,
which Chikorita's great too, but Totodile's the boy.
I'm a big Feraligatr fan.
Yeah, me too.
But apologies to everyone if you notice any of the technical difficulties that we've experienced over the course of this episode. I'm going to do my best to edit it down, but if you noticed anything, any delays in between our words that we were saying to each other, there was a little bit of latency in the earlier segments. So thanks for bearing with us. But Wes, thanks so much for joining me for this episode.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is a fun one to be on for my podcast return.
Yes, and thank you so much to everyone for listening. As you know, my Patreon and the associated Discord server are the best ways to get any questions or comments in, but you can also get in touch with me at brian@allthingsnintendo.com or hit me up on Blue Sky or Instagram at Brian P. Shea. That is also my YouTube channel name, and if you would subscribe to the channel, it would help me out a lot. Wes, where can people find you online?
You can find me on Instagram at I_am_Wesley LeBlanc. I think if you just look up my name, it'll pop up. I don't know. And Blue Sky is primarily where I post. I don't really post on Twitter except like once every 6 months now to promote something about work. If you want to see my rambling thoughts about Final Fantasy 13 or the Switch 2 or anything else, I'm on Blue Sky at Wesley LeBlanc.
And of course, you can find both of us at GameInformer.com and Game Informer magazine, which is launching very soon. That is our show for this week. Thank you again for listening. Take care. We'll see you next time. Before we close out this episode of All Things Nintendo, I just want to give a special shout out to the $10 patrons of the show. Alex Stadnick, Andy Junkins, Ben Richland, Chaps My Ass, Derek Sigmund, Dusty Beeman, Ian T. Clark, Jason Thompson, Jawar Hello, Johnny Five, Jordan Sloat, Jose Villalobos, Joshua DeProy, Cody Gibson, Creeper207, Paul at Drunk on Mako, Philip G. Cox, Pratable, Rob McCann, Bobby Mac 265, Robert Sosa, Roberto Nieves, Roger Reichert, Russell Sayer, Smithy Poo, Zachary Pliggy, and Zek 3 Sword Sama. Thank you so much for your support. I could not do this show without you.